Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has multiple bijuu bloodlines. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by DarkDragonFirewing, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Part I. The naming of Naruto Uzumaki. Kushina-chan, the doctors say that the baby's gonna be a boy. Minato leaned down to kiss his wife. Now what are we going to name him when he's born? You say the first name and then we'll take turns naming him. I'm sure he'll be fine with two middle names. Alright, Naruto, Kushina said, smiling. She was in the hospital, about to give birth to her son in a few days. She was feeling weak, but that was probably normal at this stage. Her belly was fully round. Mizo, Minato replied with a serious expression. Kushina glared at him. No, we are not going to name him after Raymond. Can't you choose a different name? However, when she saw Minato's serious and slightly hurt expression, she sighed. Fine, we'll name him after Raymond. A smile played on her lips when she saw Minato brightened up. She always loved it when he smiles, especially when she was the one making him do it. Okay, this is hard. Oh, I know. Cage. Minato raised an eyebrow. Seriously? Yep. One day, he'll be stronger than his daddy, Kushina said resolutely. He'll become the 5th or 6th Hokage. Minato laughed quietly. No, it's not that. If you put his name together, it'll be Naruto Mizo Cage. Get it? Miso Cage, the cage of the imaginary village with the best Mizo ramen. Kushina shrugged. Oh, well. I like it. Minato thought for a few minutes before saying, his last name will be Uzumaki after his mother. Kushina stared at him. Minato-kun, that's just strange. It should be Namikaze, not Uzumaki. Minato thought for a second before announcing proudly, his name will be Naruto Mizo Cage Uzumaki Namikaze, the longest name in the village. In short, it will be Naruto Uzumaki. He nodded an affirmative of his own decision, showing that he approved of that name. What do you think? I think, Minato, that you have finally lost it, said a voice at the door. Minato turned around and greeted, hello Fugaku. What did I lose? Your sanity, Fugaku replied simply, even though it was meant to be a joke. So, his name is Naruto Mizo Cage Uzumaki Namikaze. Interesting in the fact that it has Miso Cage in it. Who came up with that? Both of us, but Kushina-chan was the one who added Cage to it. It was supposed to be Mizo Cage, Minato said jokingly. Anyways, how's Mikoto? She's fine. Our son will be born in a few days. Hey, maybe Naruto and he will be born on the same day. What did you name him? Minato asked. Sasuke. Sasuke Uchiha, Fugaku replied, amused. No middle name will be necessary. Minato shrugged. You should give him a middle name. Add more uniqueness to it. Fugaku shook his head. He wasn't a person to get complicated with names, unlike Minato, who loves to be creative in everything he does. There's no need for middle names, my friend. Complicated names will only confuse you. Minato shook his head. Nah. Nah. It went on for a while until Kushina couldn't take it anymore and yelled, Minato Namikaze, Fugaku Uchiha, if you two don't shut your blabbering mouths and let me rest in peace and quiet after I escape this hospital bed, you two are so dead. Minato chuckled nervously. Yes, dear, of course. He turned to Fugaku and whispered, let's visit Mikoto-chan before Kushina-chan decides to actually fulfill her threat. Fugaku nodded quickly in agreement and the two ran out of there pronto. Kushina sighed in contentment. Finally she could get some peace and quiet. Bang. She sweat dropped as she heard Minato apologizing to a nurse because of accidentally overturning a cart or something. Sometimes, I wonder how that man had ever become the Yondaime. Itachi was only 4 years old. However, unlike most toddlers, he was intelligent and quiet. He loves to read and gain knowledge. While other toddlers would yell and make a lot of noise, he would stay quiet and keep his opinions and knowledge to himself until he needs to express them. He was also compassionate, patient, and humble. He was confident in his abilities but at the same time knowledgeable of where and when his limits are reached, avoiding fights he knew he couldn't win. Itachi was also aware that overconfidence and arrogance are the deadliest weapons against a ninja. He kept telling himself that he could do better in anything. While his mentors praise him, he criticizes himself, striving to do even better. Today, he decided to skip his daily trip to the library and training session to be with his unborn brother. Mom, can I feel him? Please. Mikoto chuckled softly before taking her son's hand and placing it on her stomach gently. Itachi gasped in fascination. He's kicking. Are you hurt, Akasan? Mikoto smiled. It doesn't hurt as much as you think. Itachi, you'll soon be an elder brother. Itachi grinned. My very own brother, he whispered. Right then, he could already felt love for his brother spreading through every cell in his body. He was going to be a big brother, protecting and teaching and training his little brother. The door opened and Minato and Fugaku came in. Minato came to Mikoto's side and said, how's Sasuke? Just fine, Minato, just fine, Makoto replied. How are Kushina and her baby? What are you going to name him anyways? Minato smiled proudly. We're gonna name him Naruto Mizo Kage Uzumaki Namikaze. Makoto giggled. Creative as always I see. She looked next to Minato and whispered to Fugaku, what's a miso cage? Fugaku shrugged. The cage of the land with the best miso flavored ramen. Minato turned to Itachi, who was staring at him. So you're going to be an older brother, aren't you? Hi, Hokage-sama, Itachi replied politely. Hey, it's just Minato-san to you, Itachi. You know I hate formalities like those. Besides, we both know each other pretty well, don't you think? Minato asked, ruffling Itachi's hair. Itachi smiled at the touch. He had always thought of Minato as a second father. Hi, I do, Minato-san. Kyuubi leaned against a tree. She was having her morning nap, nothing too special. She had given up searching for the person who awakened her long time ago. It would end up in a lot of deaths and she didn't want that. Suddenly a kunai zipped through the air, piercing her cheek, which instantly healed. Who's there? She growled, standing up. There was no answer. Suddenly a cage of chakra surrounded her. Kyuubi, however, was unfazed. Who's there? She repeated. There was a chuckle and a snake-like man appeared from out of the trees. Ah, the Kyuubi. So, you have stopped searching for me? Kyuubi blinked. Searching for him? What the heck is he talking about? Wait, ever wondered who awakened you in your slumber, Kyuubi-chan, a few years ago? Orochimaru asked, looking smug and confident that Kyuubi couldn't break out of the cage. Kyuubi's expression remained emotionless. Release me. Why should I? Because I could escape. If you release me, I won't kill you. Orochimaru laughed. This cage allows me to harness and take your energy whether you want me to or not. Attack all you want. You'll only help me. Let me demonstrate. He put out his hands in front of him. Kyuubi felt her chakra draining away from her. She growled. No. He dares. He dares to rage blinded her. Her clothes disappeared and 9 tails slowly developed. She transformed slowly into a demon fox. Orochimaru laughed. Keep going. Give me power. Kyuubi snarled. He will never laugh again. She released her energy. The cage expanded, starting to break from all the energy, not being able to absorb so much. Orochimaru widened his eyes. How? Kyuubi's eyes were filled with rage and hatred. I will kill you. The cage broke. The fox pounced at Orochimaru. Orochimaru gritted his teeth and summoned a snake. He jumped on it and flees with Kyuubi close on his heel. He came up with an idea. She will be of use in her anger. He turned from his course towards Konoha. She can destroy Konoha, my native village. She can battle them all, being held back until I escape. If I get what I want, Konoha and the 9 tails will both die. Part 2, Sacrifices and Memories. Okage-sama, the 9-tailed fox is attacking our village. Minato widened his eyes in shock. How could or not? He had been friends with Kyuubi for years. Why are you doing this, Kyuubi-chan? What have we done to anger you? Why? He stood up, gripping his desk tightly. He couldn't understand any of Kyuubi's actions. They don't make sense. Minato, you're going to have to make your choice. Your friend or your village, the Sandaime said quietly. I'm sure Kyuubi has her reasons for doing this, but we don't know what the reasons are, so there's no justifying her actions. She can't destroy our village like this. Minato closed his eyes, as if in pain. I know, sensei. I know. Then his heart ached at what he decided he was going to do. He will lose 2 things most dear to him, more than his life. His friend and his son. Sure, Naruto will survive, but what is of his future life? Suddenly the door slammed open and Fugaku was standing in the doorway, panting from running. He compassed himself and walked over to Minato. My friend, I know how hard this must be for you. I've put a lot of thought into this, you know. Instead of Naruto, take Sasuke instead. You don't have to sacrifice everything for the village. We can each give a bit of our share. Minato shook his head slowly. His eyes were sad and wet. Then he hugged Fugaku tightly. No, I could never accept such an offer from you, Fugaku. How could I? If I did, what kind of a leader am I? A leader is someone who sacrifices for his people, not asking others to make the sacrifices for them. Fugaku closed his eyes. How could you do this, Minato, sacrificing both your life, your friend, and your son for the village? He paused. You are a true leader then. You value those who trust you above all else, even more than yourself. Minato took a breath and then handed Fugaku 3 scrolls. These are our inheritance to Naruto. Give these to him when he's ready to use them. Take care of my son, Fugaku. I trust you. Remember, Kyuubi or Naruto, they're both good inside. Be a father to him. Minato kissed Fugaku on both cheeks and, patting his shoulder, left the room. Fugaku, for the first time in his life, finally broke down. Minato and he were on the same team when they were genins, and they've been like brothers. However, not even the strongest of ninjas can fight sadness and win. Minato ran towards the hospital and up to Kushina's room. Kushina was lying there, eyes closed. She was breathing heavily, in pain. He touched her cheek and took the basket with Naruto in it. Kushina said weakly, Minato. Minato turned towards her. Yes, Kushina-chan. Kushina stared at him with bright eyes. I just hope you know what you're doing, Minato-kun. I hope so, too. Minato reached forward and shared one last kiss with his wife before leaving the hospital. He summoned Gamabunta outside the hospital. Gamabunta-sama, I need you to get me as close to Kyuubi as possible while I prepare. I'll try, Minato. Gamabunta waited patiently as Minato jumped on with all his materials. Ready. Gamabunta looked up across the horizon where Kyuubi was being held off barely by thousands of ninjas. He was sure that if he gets too close, he'll be killed. He wasn't even sure if he could get close enough for Minato to do the jutsu. Hi. Let's go. Minato was pale as they sped towards Kyuubi. He hoped Kyuubi would recognize him and stop her senseless rampage, but as they locked eyes, Minato knew Kyuubi was in a complete rage, not feeling anything but rage. Kyuubi couldn't stop herself even if she wanted to. Look, it's the Yondaime. He's battling the nine-tailed fox. Someone among the ninjas cried. They all stopped what they were doing to watch the match. Kyuubi saw them and roared, lunging at them. Minato whispered an apology to her and made his hand seal. A bright light surrounded the area. He did what was needed and felt his life slipping away as the death god took his claim. At the same time Minato died, Kushina in the hospital breathed her last breath and died, joining her husband in an everlasting sleep. Fugaku heard a lot of cheers and stood up numbly, knowing Minato had fulfilled his duty and saved the village. He walked out into the field where Gamabunta stood in front of a motionless body of Minato and a basket with a crying Naruto inside. Fugaku picked up the basket and closed Minato's eyes, which were opened and staring. He walked back to the hospital, soothing the baby, and opened the door to Mikoto's room. Itachi looked up, knowing what had happened in the last few hours. He was crying over the death of his second father or Uncle Minato, as he sometimes called him in their most intimate times together, but now his eyes brightened with interest as Fugaku laid Naruto in Mikoto's other arm, opposite of Sasuke. Itachi, who's that? He's your foster brother, Itachi. Fugaku watched as Itachi poked Naruto curiously. Itachi brightened at a newfound love he felt towards Naruto's. He was part of their family now. Mikoto shifted uneasily. Fugaku, isn't that the Mikoto-chan, a container isn't the animal it contains. Naruto is Naruto. And even if he isn't, you can be rest assured that Kyuubi is a good person. Mikoto let out a sigh of relief and relaxed. Deep inside Naruto's seal, Kyuubi finally calmed down, though she was extremely disoriented. The last thing she remembered was Orochimaru zapping away at her energy. Where am I? She muttered to herself. Minato's son Naruto died for the village. Kyuubi raised her head and saw a baby sleeping on the stone floor in front of her cage. Kyuubi gasped. She was caged. Does that mean she lost control of herself yet again? Memories flashed in her mind's eye. Flashback, the Nidaime sighed. Kyuubi-chan, your powers are too immense. What happens if you lose control over them? I won't force you to be sealed into the shrine, but please consider it. Kyuubi frowned. But I won't lose control over it. If you can keep your people from bothering me and enraging me, then I won't even lay a hand on them. The Nidaime nodded. But I can't stop all, Kyuubi. At least try to contain yourself when it happens. Before he could say another word, a cry came from the bushes and a boy threw a stone at Kyuubi, crying out, monster. Before the Nidaime could stop him. Kyuubi's stress and her natural demand for respect was more than a match for her control. Kyuubi lunged at the boy and her claws wrapped around his throat, squeezing it swiftly and killing the boy in less than a second. Blood covered her hand and soon after, with horror, Kyuubi stared at the boy's broken neck. She turned to the Nidaime, her eyes filled with terror of herself. Seal me, Nidaime. Without further notices, the Nidaime sealed Kyuubi into the fire shrine and Kyuubi slept for years to come. Many years later, Kyuubi has awakened. She shook herself and stared, dazed. Then she remembered what had happened years before. She stared wildly around, searching for the one who released her, but finding none. In terror of herself, she lost herself in pursuit of her releaser, killing villages and ripping apart towns in search of him. She was going to force him to seal her back into the shrine. One day, she looked around at the hundreds of corpses surrounding her. She sighed and laid down, her head up and about and her tails wrapped around her. She'll never find him, and until then, she'll be a danger to all she meets. Suddenly, a young man with blonde hair came from the thicket of trees towards her. Kyuubi growled, in no mood to be bothered at the moment. Stay away, human, if you wish to keep your life as it is now. The youngster ignored her threat and sat down on one of Kyuubi's outstretched claws. Why did you kill all these people? Kyuubi normally would have killed someone who had been so daring, but something about this man intrigues her. I killed them because they stand in my search to find my releaser, the one who released me from the fire shrine. Why do you want to search for him? Ayubi found herself telling him what happened since the incident with the Nidame. And so, if he can release me, he can also seal me, or else, I'll always be a danger. Why do you keep looking for him then? If you do, you'll still be a danger to others. Couldn't you at least try to live outside the shrine and still be a peaceful creature? What's the point of looking for him anyways if you're going to kill so many in the process? That's what you're trying to avoid doing, am I correct? Ayubi stared, amazed at the blonde man's courage. You're extremely sharp, human. What's your name if I may ask? Minato. Minato Namikaze. What's yours? Ayubi no Yauko, the nine-tailed fox bijuu. Kyuubi stood up and returned to her human form, beginning to walk to the edge of the forest. Don't worry Minato, she said, glancing back at him. I won't kill any more, but it wouldn't do if I stayed close to human civilization. Minato touched her shoulder. You're a good person Kyuubi. Maybe we can be friends one day under friendlier circumstances. We already are. Anyone who helps another is a friend. With that, Kyuubi disappeared into the forest. Then flashback, Kyuubi acknowledged that Naruto was Minato's son. She reached out for Naruto's baby form and whispered, "You will be one day the greatest ninja in the land, young one." After her promise, Kyuubi spent days in mourning over the death of her friend. Yugaku groaned. Finally, Naruto's adoption papers were done. He came home to find Itachi playing with Sasuke and Naruto in their crib, making them laugh. "Do you like your new brother, Itachi?" Yugaku asked, smiling. "Like him?" Itachi scoffed. "I love him. He's my brother. Besides, what's there not to love about him?" He stuck his finger into Sasuke's hand and got stuck as Sasuke gripped his finger. Itachi wiggled his finger, teasing Sasuke. "You think you're tough, huh? Take this." He blew onto Sasuke's face, making Sasuke squeal with delight. Yugaku turned to Mikoto. "Our house is about to get loud with those three around." Part 3, the half-fusion technique. 4 years later, Naruto, you're going to have private lessons with Hokage-sama, Itachi informed Naruto, who was lying on his stomach next to Sasuke on the sofa, learning to read. Itachi was now a chunin. Naruto answered, not really paying attention. Sasuke nudged him. "Naruto, Itachi said you're going to have private lessons with the Hokage, the strongest ninja in our village." Sasuke exclaimed, slightly jealous. Naruto looked up into Itachi's eyes. The old geezer. Itachi gave him a stern look. "Naruto, show some respect. He is the leader of our village, the strongest ninja in Fire Country." Naruto rolled his eyes. "Itachi Nyasen, the strongest ninja I ever met and know in my entire life, stands right in front of me. I'll give you a clue. He has grayish-blue hair tied in a ponytail, is a chunin already when he's 8, and is my brother." Itachi sighed. "Naruto, still I'm not the strongest in the village." "Sure you aren't," Naruto mumbled, beginning to read again. "Sasuke, how do you pronounce this word?" Sasuke stared at the word for a while before answering, "I think it's pronounced daimyo, I'm not entirely sure though." Asked Kyuubi-chan. "Well, Kyuubi-chan. It's pronounced exactly as Sasuke said. However, you should be excited by the aspect of training and learning under the old man though. He is strong, Naruto, don't underestimate him just because he's an old-timer. Kyuubi stood up from where she was gardening. She and Naruto worked together to transform the sewers into a beautiful Japanese house with a garden. "Kyuubi-chan, I'm not saying I'm disappointed. All I'm saying is that I think Itachi Nyasen is a better ninja. Listen to me. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Still, you have to try hard while training with the Sandame. Understand? Get stronger and smarter. Your father would have wanted that." "Sure," Naruto said to Sasuke. "Kyuubi-chan said that you're right." He got up from the sofa. "Itachi, are we gonna train?" Itachi looked up from his paperwork. "I'm busy right now, Naruto." Naruto whined, "Come on. You're always busy. Can't you use that cloning technique to get the clones to do it for you?" Itachi blinked. Naruto had just solved the ultimate problem of all high-ranking ninjas with just one suggestion. "Why didn't I think of that?" he muttered. He made a seal and produced 10 clones. "Get to work," he ordered them and turned to Naruto and Sasuke. "Alright, little brothers, I'll teach you the fireball weight. Let's start with basic training techniques. This is after all your first training session, right?" They both nodded and Itachi continued, "Alright then. These techniques, I want you to practice them every day when you have time. Train yourself harder each time to perfect it. Don't praise yourself, criticize each other. Every small detail counts. Understand? Overconfidence and arrogance are your worst enemies." Naruto and Sasuke nodded their heads vigorously. If they were going to learn from their elder brother and maybe surpass him one day, they have to listen to every detail. Itachi smiled approvingly. "We're going to follow a training schedule. In the morning, you'll just do basic exercises like running, push-ups, etc. Afterwards, take a break and read or something. I'll give you lectures every once in a while. In the afternoon, practice the chakra control techniques that I'm about to show you. This will use a lot of your energy, so afterwards, you just need to meditate. Naruto, you'll have to go to the Hokage Tower at around 5. Every few days or so, I'll teach you a new jutsu. How does that sound to you? He gasped in surprise when his brothers hugged the life out of him. I take it it's good then. Yep. Itachi looked at the time. Right, it's the afternoon, so I'll teach you guys a basic chakra control technique. He led them outside into a training ground. He led them to a tree and ordered them, climb this tree with no hands. What? Sasuke exclaimed. How's that possible? Itachi grinned. But it is, Sasuke. Here's the catch. If you are able to channel a precise amount of chakra to your feet, enough to hold your weight, you will be able to climb the tree with no hands needed. Good luck. He walked off to another training zone. Sasuke pouted. He's just gonna leave us like this, isn't he? Naruto shrugged. Well, he doesn't have that much time to watch over us 100% of the time, does he? Besides, we can make it without him. Race you up the tree. He ran towards the tree and made 2 steps up it until he fell back down and smacked his head on the ground. Ow. Slick, Sasuke snorted. Remember what he said. He told us that we have to be able to put in a precise amount of chakra, enough to hold up our weight. Oh, right. Naruto scratched the back of his head, laughing nervously. He has a bigger attention span than you do, I have to admit that. Naruto huffed and channeled some more chakra into his feet, making up the tree 4 feet before losing his grip and fell backwards again. Arg. Isn't there an easier technique? What? Can't handle the pressure, Naruto. Sasuke teased as he was able to climb 11 feet. Oh, you're going to, Sasuke growled. Though it was fun, it was also slightly embarrassing to be carried on the back of his older brother, especially through the streets of Konoha. I can get down now, brother. Don't push yourself, Itachi stated simply. Naruto grinned at Sasuke. See, Sasuke, I could make it up the tree before you do. Of course, the only reason he could was because Sasuke ran out of enough chakra before he did. Naruto called for Kyuubi's chakra once his own became low on supply. Sasuke whined, I wanna have a fox in my stomach, Itachi. That'd be so cool. Unlimited chakra supply, fast healing, better chakra control. Scorn from the village, Naruto added as someone from the other side of the street threw a rock at him. Itachi caught it before it hit him and threw it away. Sasuke sent a glare, very cute one, considering he's only 4, towards whoever threw the rock. Then he turned to Naruto, looking sympathetic, don't you? Naruto shook his head and smiled carefreely. Why should I care what they think, Sasuke, when I got you, Itachi, Abasan, Atausan, your clan, and Kyuubi-chan on my side? Itachi sent a smile to Naruto and asked, how's Kyuubi? She's fine. She's happy gardening and cooking and all those things every day, Naruto replied simply. She told me to tell you that you should take the Jonin exam this year instead of waiting until next year. Itachi chuckled. Really? She must be really confident in my abilities. Yeah, she is. See, I told you you're a strong ninja. I never said you didn't and that I wasn't, Naruto. I just told you that I'm not the strongest. Trust me when I say you're gonna meet a lot stronger ninjas than me. Itachi's eyes showed no deception, he was telling the truth. He also didn't seem to mind the fact that there are stronger ninjas than him. Naruto rolled his eyes. So, now that we mastered the tree climbing technique, Itachi shook his head. You haven't mastered it yet, Ataudo. Tomorrow, you can try on some weights. You're kidding me? No, I'm not. You have to push your body harder and harder and harder, Itachi continued and harder about 50 times until Sasuke put a hand over his mouth. Stop talking, Itachi Nyasan. Sasuke yelled, giggling. Itachi looked at the time and turned to Naruto. Naruto, remember to go to the Hokage Tower in 1 hour. Naruto groaned. Now, he'll have to spend 3 hours with a grandpa ninja. Naruto got home at 8 and pouted to himself on the sofa. No matter how much he wanted to be stronger, he would much rather train under Itachi's supervision than that old geezer's. I'm just a little kid blah 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 Naruto muttered. I'm not a little kid. Itachi came into the living room from the study and asked, so, how did the session go? Naruto jumped up and hugged Itachi tightly. Save me. Save me. Save me. Wow, did he really work you that hard? Itachi grinned. No. He keeps calling me a little kid. I'm not a little kid. Itachi rolled his eyes and poked Naruto in the forehead. I don't know, Ataudo. You look pretty little to me. He chuckled when Naruto glared at him. Well, compared to 99% of the village, you're pretty little. Not you, too. Naruto exclaimed. I'm not little. Sasuke came in from the kitchen, chomping on an apple. Yes, you are. Oh, look who's talking. You're not a 5-foot-tall ninja either, Naruto retorted. Yes, but I'm a whole half-foot taller than you though I am younger than you by 2 hours, Sasuke replied smugly and continued to bite away at his apple. You're a shorty. Just admit it. I'm not. Oh, yes, Sasuke replied and turned away back into the kitchen before Naruto could say anything else. Itachi chuckled and took out a scroll. I forgot all about this. I wonder what Hokage-sama has to say about your training. Not that old timer again. Naruto whined. He ran into the kitchen while Itachi raised an eyebrow at the letter. Itachi, you have seen for yourself how the villagers treated Naruto, not as the fourth would want. On his way to our session, he had decided to buy some bread and the baker had grabbed him and tried to throw him in the oven. I have decided that the best way to get the civilians and ninjas alike to respect or at least fear him is to train him to be more powerful, if necessary more than me, so that he could at least defend himself against attacks and persecution from the village. Unfortunately, his chakra control and knowledge of jutsus are very limited at this young age, so he is still prone to persecution. To get around this obstacle, I want you to research on the half-fusion technique. This technique will forever half-fuse Kyuubi and Naruto together. Kyuubi will not be able to control him, but they will both be benefited in some way. However, I myself don't know exactly how to perform it and what it does. The third Hokage, Sarutobi, Itachi sighed. Why hadn't Naruto told him about the assault? Also, the Sandaime had not known anything about Naruto's relationship with Kyuubi. In fact, only he, Sasuke, and their parents actually know that Kyuubi was a peace-loving fox. Half-fusion technique. This might be difficult. I should just ask Kyuubi-chan. She knows nearly everything in the world, so it would be much quicker. Naruto, can you come over here? Naruto came into the living room, looking nervous. What did he say? Don't worry. You're not in trouble, Itachi told him. However, I need to get some information from Kyuubi-chan. Ask her how to perform the half-fusion technique and what it does. Okay then. Hey, Kyuubi-chan, do you know how to perform the half-fusion technique? Naruto heard Kyuubi let out a cry of surprise. Where did you heard that from? Itachi wants to know how to perform it and what it does. Kyuubi sighed and sat down on a rock. It's a very risky technique, kid. Yes, I do know how to perform it and exactly what it does. However, during the time it takes for the technique to be completed, there is a chance that you might die, possibly 75%. The reason? I'm a demon and you're a human, two different species of living things. Fusing them together is very risky. Itachi, Kyuubi said that the technique is very risky and I have a 75% that I might die because of it, because she's a demon and I'm a human. Itachi was deep in thought. Ask her how to perform it and what the benefits are. Performing it doesn't require people on the outside. The demon inside the Jinchuriki will send the Jinchuriki into suspended animation for about 2 months for the process to complete. Afterwards, if they survive it, that is, the benefits will be very rewarding and great. The bijuu, for one thing, will be able to see, hear, and experience what its container is seeing, hearing, and experiencing. It will be as if they were still free in the wild. The Jinchuriki, for another thing, will have all the bijuu's cleverness, skills, cunning, knowledge, and powers. They will have full control of the bijuu's powers. The two will understand each other perfectly, able to know each other's feelings and moods. It's a great reward at a very high risk. Naruto told Itachi this. Itachi sighed. The Sandaime was right. However, the third probably had not known about the high-risk part. Naruto, Hokage-sama wanted it to be performed on you. Naruto yelped, he wants me to die. No, it wasn't my idea, but I want the same purpose, want you to be powerful, so that you can defend yourself against the villagers whenever they attack you. I won't always be around to protect you, Naruto. Why can't I just wait until I enter the academy? You have a year until you enter it. Many might have hurt you by then, Itachi said. Naruto turned away. Do you think I should take the risk? The risk and the benefits balanced each other out. You can either lose everything or you can gain everything. Finally Itachi smiled sadly. It's your choice however, Itato. Naruto thought. Finally he said, I don't know how you're gonna react to this, Itachi, but I'm taking the risk. If I don't, I won't ever know what would happen if I did. Life always has risks, Itachi. Itachi stared at him. Naruto, he began slowly. You're a daredevil, I can see that. I also agree with you wholeheartedly that life always has risks to take. However, is the risk worth taking? Like you said, they balance each other out, so yes, it is, Naruto announced. He heard Kyuubi let out a sigh. I meant Naruto that the risk of death has a high chance of succeeding. Itachi then ruffled Naruto's hair, but the touch seemed more sad and distant. Naruto hugged Itachi. I'll be fine, Nyasan. I promise. Itachi chuckled softly and replied, promises will be null and void if you die though. Just trust me. I'm gonna survive if that's the last thing I do. Naruto sent Itachi a serious look so that his brother wouldn't make a comment like, that might be the last thing you will ever do. Itachi didn't say anything since he knew Naruto was determined. He gave Naruto a piggyback ride to his room and set him on his bed. When will you do this? Now, Naruto replied resolutely. The sooner the better. It also won't give him time to turn back from his decision. Itachi widened his eyes. Naruto, Itachi. Naruto gave him a look. Itachi kissed him and gave him a hug again. Don't die, he whispered before standing up and walking out the room, not looking back. Naruto sighed and lay down. Okay, Kyuubi-chan, I'm ready. I just hope you know what you're doing, kid. Kyuubi responded worriedly before sending them both into suspended animation. For those of you who don't know what suspended animation is, it's like you're sent into a death-like state though you don't really die. Itachi Nyasan, where's Naruto? Sasuke whined. He hadn't seen his other brother for days. Itachi gulped inaudibly. He's up probably training with Hokage-sama. That's what you said 2 days ago. Itachi sighed. Sasuke was not to be considered idiotic. He was a sharp youngster. The Kodo and Fugaku had been told of the half-fusion technique and were worried sick whether Minato's son was going to survive. They had scolded Itachi for hours because he had allowed his brother to undergo the technique. Minato had assigned them a mission to take Naruto under their roof for Naruto to live, not to die. Itachi gave Sasuke an answer that wasn't entirely a lie. He's just sleeping, Sasuke, for a few months. Heart IVE. Brotherly love. 2 months later, Itachi opened the door to Naruto's room. Itato, are you awake? There was no answer. He went inside and sat down on the bed, careful not to sit on his little brother. Naruto's body was still and death-like. However, there were some changes to his features. His whisker marks were deeper and more prominent, and his blonde hair had red highlights. His lips were parted slightly, and Itachi could see sharper, larger canine teeth, though they aren't as large as an Inuzuka's. Itachi was beginning to get worried. What happens if Naruto died? Brother. There was still no answer. The whole day wasn't done yet though, and he stayed by his brother's side until midnight. By then, he had nearly given up hope. You made me a promise. He choked back tears as he stood up to go to bed, even though he wasn't tired at all. Suddenly, like a miracle, Naruto began breathing again though he was still unconscious. Itachi breathed a sigh of relief and surprise at the same time. His brother had made it through the ordeal. Sleep well, Itato. He kissed Naruto on the forehead and, smiling, left the room. His parents will be relieved and Naruto's life will change forever. A year later, Itachi stared at the report in his hands. It was impossible. How could Naruto master every single one of the most advanced jutsus and techniques in all of Fire Country in a year? When Naruto had woken up 10 days after the completion of the technique, he had explained to them all the benefits of the fusion fast learning skills, perfect memory, and more, but Itachi would have never believed this. Continuing to read, he found out that the next day, once Naruto becomes 6, he'll have to go train abroad with foreign instructors to put his powers to its full potential and to allow the villagers to forget all about him so that when he returns, no one would recognize him and see that he's a Jinchuriki. The Hokage will make up a lie, saying that he had sent the ambush to kill the demon. Itachi sighed. So much to think about. There's the orientation into the academy tomorrow, there's a mission coming in for him tomorrow as well, there's ARG. Maybe he should take a break to enjoy the afternoon with his brothers. Itachi stood up and went outside. Sasuke and Naruto were, instead of training today, talking under a shady tree. They were discussing, no doubt, about the academy and beating Itachi's record of graduating at age 7. I was thinking. Maybe we could try graduating at age 6, Naruto was whispering. Yeah, then Itachi Nyasan will have to admit we're stronger than him. Sasuke whispered back. Itachi got reminded of the fact that Naruto won't be at the orientation tomorrow as he was going to train abroad. However, Itachi just chuckled and sat down in front of them. So you want to beat my record? Yeah. Itachi poked both of them in the forehead. Sure you will. Want to go out for some ramen, little brothers? Naruto cheered, but Sasuke pouted. Itachi chuckled again at Sasuke. Come on, we go out for onigiri all the time. Naruto has taste buds, too, you know. He thought for a second. I wouldn't mind getting some Pocky on the way. Sasuke rolled his eyes. Pocky was Itachi's favorite food. Okay, can we just go now? They stood up and went to Ichiraku's. AM looked up at her customers and smiled at Itachi. Good afternoon, Itachi-san. Itachi's sweat dropped. Did he really look that old? AM and he are about the same age. Actually, I'm only 9. AM's eyes widened. Oh, I'm sorry. I take it they're your brothers? She asked, indicating to Naruto and Sasuke. We'd like to order some ramen please, Itachi told her, sitting down on a stool. Okay, what would you like to order? She took out a small notebook. Miso, Itachi ordered simply. Slightly spicy. Same, Sasuke replied. 1 bowl of beef, 2 bowls of miso, 1 bowl of chicken make that 6, 5 bowls of vegetable can you make that 3 bowls of beef? Thanks can you make it 4 bowls of miso? Make them all super duper spicy, too, please Naruto rambled on. Itachi, realizing that Naruto might empty his wallet if he keeps going like this, intervened quickly. Naruto, I think that's enough. He placed a hand over Naruto's mouth to keep him from ordering more and whispered, if you keep going on like this, Itato, my wallet's gonna be empty. I don't think you can eat that much anyways. Naruto nodded in defeat, a little disappointed, and Itachi released him. After a moment, AM came back with the ramen. Naruto received a bowl of beef and he gulped it down as if his life depended on it. Itachi widened his eyes. You're going to get sick if you keep doing that. Those ramen are really spicy. Come on, Kit. More. More. Spicy and fiery. Fire up your fire. This is the best ramen ever. Tell the cook to add in more peppers and spices. More pepper and spices please. Naruto gasped. The spicy taste enveloped his taste buds, it was so good. Don't worry, Itachi. Kyuubi and I love this. We're fire demons for pity's sake. He gulped down another bowl of spicy ramen. Itachi and Sasuke stared. Nyasan, are you sure you aren't developing a stomachache? Sasuke asked tentatively. Naruto shook his head. Bowls stacked upon each other as Naruto gulped down each one. Once he was done, Tuchi, Sasuke and Itachi all stared at him. Naruto blinked innocently. What? They all decided to pretend as if nothing had happened. Itachi paid the bill and pulled his brothers outside. Okay Sasuke interrupted him. Are you guys coming to our orientation tomorrow? Itachi shook his head regretfully. I have a mission tomorrow. Maybe Itachi or Akasan might come. Sasuke hung his head. He was hoping Itachi might come. Itachi looked down at his feet. How will Sasuke react about Naruto's surprise departure? He sighed. He can't hide it until tomorrow. By then, it would be already too late. Naruto Hokage-sama sent me a report today. Naruto cocked his head. What did the old-timer say? Tomorrow you'll begin your training abroad with the best ninjas in the world. It'll last around 7 years. When you come back, you'll be promoted immediately to Anbu, if you want. Itachi saw Sasuke stiffened at this. Hokage-sama wanted you to rise to your full potential because of Kyuubi's chakra and powers and all. What? Why would I? Naruto was about to say leave you and my only family just because I have to go on some stupid training journey. But Itachi interrupted him. I know how you feel, Naruto, but think about it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. It's not every day that the best ninjas in the world would agree to train a random Konoha ninja that they don't even know or met. Itachi's siding was split in half. On one side, he wanted his brother to stay, but on the other, he wanted him to become stronger. Naruto thought for a long time, remaining silent. Finally, he turned to the one whom he always asked advice from in difficult situations like this one. Kyuubi, should I? From my experience in life, I'd say take all the chances that come at you. Trust me when I say they don't come every day. Naruto sighed. Alright, Itachi Nyasan, I'll go. Itachi nodded encouragingly. My mission will be to escort you to your first instructor. From there on, you're on your own except with whoever your teacher will be. Naruto nodded. Then he turned to Sasuke. His eyes widened when he saw Sasuke's expression. Sasuke had never looked so sad. His eyes were downcast, his hands were in his pockets, and his hair was partially covering his face. Oh, dang, I forgot about the orientation tomorrow. It was the most important day for a ninja, the day when you are officially recognized as a ninja in training, but still a ninja. Itachi, too, seemed to notice the tension and stayed quiet throughout their whole trip home. As they both remained quiet, Naruto remained quiet as well, convinced that it wasn't a time to talk. When they arrived home, Naruto turned to Itachi when Sasuke was out of earshot. So you're going to end up as Sasuke's Jonin when he graduates? Hi. Naruto turned away. Tell the old grandpa to leave a spot on the team for me. Itachi smiled. I will. If I know Hokage-sama, he will give me a 2-man team because you ask. I will be their Jonin, but at the same time, their teammate. Arigato, Nyasan. By the way, about tomorrow. Naruto paused, avoiding Itachi's eyes. If I don't go on the journey, you won't have a mission to do, right? Hi, that's right. Then I'm staying home, Naruto announced resolutely. He turned to Itachi and said, tomorrow is Sasuke's big day. We can't miss it. Besides, I'm fine with going to the academy. He's our brother, Itachi. Itachi widened his eyes. It wasn't because of Naruto refusing the chance to become the strongest ninja in the world, but it was because he was sacrificing the chance to go to Sasuke's orientation and be with his brother. Naruto, when you and Sasuke will be on the same team, this I'm sure the Hokage will approve. I think the team will set the record for teamwork. He paused. However, Naruto, you don't have to sacrifice all 7 years just for a day of Sasuke's orientation. We can go to his orientation tomorrow and try to make up lost time throughout the whole trip. Naruto split into a grin. Okay. Sounds good to me. Sasuke sulked the whole time in his room. He wanted the most important people in his life to be at the most important day of his life so badly. At first, he was disappointed that Itachi couldn't come. Now, he was crushed by the fact that Naruto couldn't come either. The door opened slightly and Naruto's head appeared at the doorway. Sasuke, Itachi's calling us. Naruto's shadow hovered there for a few minutes and then he closed the door quietly. Sasuke sighed. Maybe Itachi or Akasan might be there. He stood up and walked over to the living room and sat down next to Naruto in front of their dad. He listened to his father talk about Itachi's improvement, his mission, Naruto's journey, etc. He wasn't really listening though, he was just waiting for his dad to finish. Dad. He asked timidly after his father finished talking. Will you be coming to my orientation tomorrow? Yugaku hesitated before saying, I'm busy tomorrow, Sasuke. Sasuke hung his head and stared at the floor, trying to mask his feelings. All he asked for was his family to be there at his orientation, which probably only last a few hours at most for a day. Was that too much to ask for? Apparently it is. I guess our journey will be postponed then. Yugaku widened his eyes at his oldest son in surprise. What? Sasuke looked up at Itachi hopefully. Itachi continued talking to his father, not turning to give Sasuke eye contact. Naruto and I decided to stay for Sasuke's orientation tomorrow. We can always make up the lost time. After all, it is the most important day of his life and it is customary for relatives to come. Yugaku sighed and nodded. Very well then. He made a sign to show that they're dismissed. All three of them stood up and went out onto the porch. Sasuke still couldn't believe it, his brothers were coming to his orientation. He turned to them. Why did you guys postpone your journey? Itachi grinned. You're our brother. That's what brothers do for each other. Sasuke began crying from happiness. Sasuke. Itachi and Naruto asked confused. Sasuke lunged himself at them and gave them a humongous hug. Domo arigato, domo arigato, domo arigato. Naruto turned to Itachi and said, this is so worth a day of traveling. He then began laughing at Sasuke's outburst of emotion. Hi, this is. Itachi surrendered himself to Sasuke's hug. The next day, Naruto finished packing and ran to the academy where Itachi and Sasuke were already waiting for him. Am I late? If you were, I'd kill you, Sasuke informed him. No, you're not, which is a good thing. In fact, you're 15 minutes early. Naruto flashed a grin and sat down in one of the chairs in the auditorium next to Itachi. I think you're supposed to be waiting in the classroom with the rest of your teammates, Sasuke. Right? Sasuke seemed nervous as he ran off towards his classroom. Naruto sighed as he leaned back in his chair. His keen ears picked up phrases from conversations of parents nearby. That's the 9 tails herd he could kill in a blink of an eye, kill before enjoys it, killed my father. He rolled his eyes. The Nohans, he believed, is one of the only people on earth who lack a good amount of reason. Then again, he had never met any other people outside the village, so how could he kill before he was born? How could he kill before he could see? He looked around the auditorium, people were avoiding his gaze. He felt a twang in his chest whenever they shot him a glare. Despite what he told Sasuke, he really does care about what people think of him. He wants to be able to fit in, people respecting him like a normal human and not a demon. Let's see. There's the Hyuga's boy, they look cockier than a rooster. The Inuzuka's whoa, they look pretty rough, except for the girl with the ponytail. The Aburam creepy as always. He continued to observe the different clans and families until a loud voice rang through the speakers. Alright, everyone, we'll start the orientation now. A man with a scar across his nose was speaking into the microphone. His eyes met Naruto's, except they hold no hatred towards him, which was rather a surprise for Naruto, who never saw anyone outside of Tuchi, Itachi, Sasuke, their parents, the Hokage, and the Uchihas who actually treated him like a normal human. Okay, let's see. Naruto waited only for Sasuke, clapping politely with the rest of the people. When Sasuke got on the stage when his name was called, Naruto flashed him a grin and a wink. Itachi waved calmly, still composed as always. Sasuke looked as if he was about to melt from sight. He nervously came up to Iruka and received a certificate and a few other items needed for the academy years, a few textbooks, a few basic weapons, and a ninja pouch. Then he just stood stiffly next to a shy Hyuga girl. Itachi began laughing quietly. When he was oriented into the academy, he was the calmest of all his classmates. The orientation lasted about 2 hours and afterwards, everyone went for refreshments. Sasuke walked shakily to Naruto and Itachi and mumbled, "Can we go home now?" Itachi became confused. "Don't you want to get to know your classmates?" Sasuke shook his head. "I feel sick." Concerned, Itachi felt his forehead. "You're heating up." He took Sasuke on his back and carried him home. "You'll be fine. Just a little rest and you'll be okay." Sasuke nuzzled into Itachi's back. "Thanks for coming, Itachi, Naruto. I thought you wouldn't come." "Arigato, arigato." His voice became a whisper as he drifted into sleep. The next day, Sasuke woke up, refreshed. Then a terrible realization hit him. He sprang out of bed, hoping his brothers were still home. A piece of paper on his desk caught his eye. He picked it up and read, "Sasuke, we left before you woke up, we were late already, so we couldn't wait for you to wake up. Itachi Nyasan will return in about 1 week or so. I won't be returning for 7 years though. Try to reach Anbu status by the time I return. When I return, the Geezer Hokage will promote me immediately to Anbu status if I want to, that is. If you couldn't, that's okay. I'll stay Genin, Chunin, Jonin, or whatever you are with you. Good luck beating Itachi's record." Love you always, Naruto. Sasuke stared for a moment at the word 7 years. It was such a long time. Sasuke finally made his decision, one that would hold him back from surpassing Itachi. We do everything together, so it won't change now. I won't graduate until he returns. Part V. Living with a handicap. 4 years later, Yugaku was seething. How dare the village, how dare they believe that the Uchihas are the ones behind the Kyuubi's attack. He paced up and down the room. Itachi was an Anbu captain by now, and Sasuke still haven't even graduated yet. Fugaku could feel the drift between the village and the Uchiha clan now. The village believes that the Uchihas are behind the attack because the Sharingan could control demons. However, Madara Uchiha alone is the only one stupid enough in their clan to actually try to control Kyuubi, and that incident had happened years ago before the Kyuubi's attack. Even Fugaku couldn't deny the fact that Madara was the cause behind that attack. Also, Madara had left Fire Country long time ago. Orochimaru was the cause behind this attack, not the Uchihas. Why didn't the villagers believe him? For the same reason they didn't believe Naruto was not the Kyuubi. They just needed a scapegoat present. Fugaku sat down at the desk in his office and thought for a minute. He finally decided that he endured Konoha long enough. Even if his friend, Minato, was a former Hokage and died protecting the village, he, Fugaku, cannot tolerate it any longer. He stood up resolutely. Yes, that's it. An Uchiha coup d'etat to destroy the village would be perfect, punishing it for its crimes. From that time on, secret meetings were held by the Uchihas, planning and plotting to overthrow the Hokage and destroy the village. The third Hokage turned to Itachi. Your father, your whole clan in fact is getting too strong, too stubborn, and too out of hand. They are planning something against our village, against me. I want you to keep an eye on them and report to me whenever they are going across the line. And, Itachi, when they do the Sandaime peered sharply at Itachi. I want you to kill them all. Itachi narrowed his eyes. No. The Sandaime sighed. He knew Itachi was going to be hard to persuade, but he alone of the entire village was strong enough, loyal enough to Konoha to kill his own clan. Itachi, you must understand what would happen if you let them cross the line. There will be disastrous results. This is for the peace of the village, Itachi. Itachi turned away. He himself couldn't deny that his clan was up to no good. He thought about the coup d'etat his father was planning against Konohagakure. It would definitely produce disastrous results. I can't deny the fact that my clan is up to no good. The Hokage nodded. They aren't. Itachi lowered his eyes. My clan isn't worth the whole village. That answer was all the Hokage needed. Good, Itachi. Sasuke took out the katana Naruto had given him for his birthday on his travels. The katana was a dangerous weapon, deadlier than any other in Konoha. Naruto had written to him in the letter sent along with the katana, I got this while doing a mission with my Kenjutsu instructor. The katana was just another one of our booty. Hope you like it. Happy birthday. Oh, and it's not a toy. It can cut through millions of trees without ever getting dull or chipped or damaged. It's one of the sharpest katanas in the world. Sasuke ran out of his room to Itachi. Nyasan, can you teach me how to use a katana? I'm busy, Sasuke, Itachi replied. He poked Sasuke in the forehead and walked off. Sasuke widened his eyes, surprised. There was something in Itachi's voice, a hollow feeling. He shook his head and went off to practice by himself. However, before he left, he heard Itachi and his father arguing heatedly about something. I hope it's nothing serious. Naruto's red-tinted eyes scanned his surroundings to make sure that no one was following and spying on him. It had only been 4 years. However, he had already finished training with all of his assigned instructors. Now, he was training with those he thought knew more than him, whether they were on the good side or bad. He was now training with the Akatsuki, though he didn't tell them who he really is. When they saw how powerful he was, they immediately granted him a position inside their organization when he asked for it without thinking that he might not be completely loyal to them. The ring they gave him was on his left index finger, and he was partnered up with Deidara. However, he wasn't exactly loyal to the other blonde, nor were they on good terms. Naruto took out a crystal ball and set it on a stand. One of his teachers was a seer, and he was the one who taught Naruto how to use a crystal ball. Naruto was also given the crystal ball by the same person. Naruto waved his hand over the crystal, and fog was formed. Once it subsided, Naruto gazed into the ball. What he saw made him gasp in horror and shock. Yugaku in a room with a few other Uchihas, planning a coup d'etat against Konoha the Sandaime, and Itachi talking about Itachi killing his clan to stop the said coup d'etat. Itachi and Fugaku arguing, son against father. Fugaku, spending more time with Sasuke instead, telling him not to become like Itachi. Naruto growled. No, he must act quickly. A week later, Itachi's eyes were emotionless. The time had come for him to kill, the Hokage had given him the order. Itachi took out a kunai and walked silently to his parents' bedroom. He didn't want this, but he had no choice. His parents had raised him, but now he'll repay them by snuffing out their lives. As he reached for the door, the sounds of a running animal reached his ears. He turned around swiftly, kunai poised to defend himself from whatever that might attack him. The wolf appeared in front of him. Its magnificence froze Itachi for a while. The wolf walked up to him and placed a scroll at his feet. Then it slowly disappeared, turning to ashes. Itachi opened the scroll. Itachi, I don't know when this will get to you, but don't do anything. I sent a letter to Old Man Hokage and Aratausen too. Theirs might come a little later than yours though. Don't kill, be patient. I'm sure we can work things out with no bloodshed. Your brother, Naruto. Itachi sighed and rolled it up. How did Naruto know? Either way, though, he'll have to trust Naruto on this. Anything was better than killing his own family. He walked back to his bedroom, putting away his kunai, and waited. After a while, he could hear Sasuke returning home from the academy. He didn't come out to greet him however, but stayed in his room. A little later, his parents' bedroom door opened and he could hear footsteps coming towards his room. Itachi, came his father's voice. Itachi stood up warily and walked over to the door, opening it to reveal Fugaku standing in front of the doorway. Yes, Itachi. Fugaku held out a scroll. Naruto sent me a letter. He said you were ordered to kill us, but you won't since he sent you a separate letter not to. He also told me not to launch the coup d'etat and that everything could work out without killing. Itachi lowered his eyes, slightly ashamed. I was about to kill you and Akasan. I thought it was for the best, to protect the village. I didn't want to. Gomen nasai, Itachi. Fugaku quivered slightly, not from fear but from a surge of emotion. He had always known Itachi was more loyal to the village than to his own family. Itachi follows his mind more than his heart. This allowed him to see through deceptions of the heart. He knows what must be done, the right thing to do. He doesn't do what he himself wants, but what was best. Fugaku understood his son quite well. He finally did something he hadn't done for years. He hugged Itachi as close and meaningful as a father could ever hug his child. It's okay, Itachi. The Hokage and we can work this out. Then we can be a family again, one that doesn't involve you trying to kill us. Fugaku chuckled softly. Itachi snuggled into his father's chest and whispered, it really is a good thing we have Naruto in our family, huh? Hi. Naruto wiped a tear rolling down his cheek. Itachi and Fugaku were finally reconciled with each other. It was a beautiful scene. The next day, Sasuke heard voices. He knew he wasn't supposed to intervene on his elders' meetings, but he wanted to know what's been going on lately. His father and his brother were acting strange and tensed around each other. Sasuke ran through the hallways of his house to the meeting room and pressed his ear to the door. He could hear Itachi and the Hokage arguing with his dad. Then Itachi was arguing with the Hokage. The small meeting was heating up. Hokage-sama, there has to be a way to work this out. Killing my own family should be used only as a last resort. Sasuke widened his eyes. Itachi had been about to kill his own family. Had Itachi been about to kill him, Sasuke, his own brother? Itachi, don't you think I've been trying to find a way? It's the only way. No, it's not. Why won't you believe us? Why won't you and everyone believe us that it wasn't us who were behind the Kyuubi attack? It was Orochimaru, I swear. How would Orochimaru control Kyuubi? The Sharingan is the only tool in the world known to be able to control demons besides the firsts. It doesn't mean we use it too. How would you know that Orochimaru was behind the attack? Itachi was silent. You're just like the rest of the village, he finally said quietly. You just want to have a scapegoat, one besides your beloved student. It was now the Sandame's turn to be silent. Itachi's voice was suddenly filled with angry scorn. How do we know? Kyuubi-chan told us. She admitted that Madara did control her before, but only once. You now think that every time a demon attacks, it's because of the Sharingan. That isn't true. Kyuubi told us that Orochimaru enraged her and that she lost control over her emotions. Kyuubi-chan was a peace-loving fox. She admitted everything through Naruto. All the Uchihas know this. That's why we're angry that you won't be open-minded and believe us. You kept blaming us for something we didn't do, making us scapegoats. We've been loyal to you and the village all this time, and this is how you repay us. Fugaku's voice was calmer than Itachi's. Hokage-sama, I'm willing to make peace if you stop the rumors against the Uchihas. I'll try, came the answer after a long silence. However, Fugaku, the village won't give up the belief easily. The third paused and sighed wearily and deeply. I admit to you here. I have always tried to protect Orochimaru as much as possible, shielding my eyes from his power-hungry actions. That was what happened long time ago, and the result was the deaths of many lives. And I still haven't, he trailed off. Then he took a deep breath and changed the subject abruptly. The village will be to you as a handicap is to a person. The handicap infuriates and holds the person back, but the person must learn to live with it or else he'll waste his life away, brooding over why he was born with a handicap in the first place. If he tries to get rid of the handicap, the Hokage looked deeply into Fugaku's eyes. He will never be able to see if the handicap might heal because he has already gotten rid of it. Now he has no chance of healing. That will only be a setback to him. If you just try to stop the rumor, I couldn't ask for more from you. Sasuke smiled. He was quite sure everything worked out just fine. He was about to tiptoe away when Itachi's voice rang out. Little brother, I know you're there. The door opened and Itachi stood in the doorway, smiling down at the nervous Sasuke. You came right in time to witness how many lives could be saved if people just work things out peacefully and not violently. He then pulled Sasuke through the doorway into view of Fugaku and the Sandaime. Chapter 2. Return of Uzumaki. Part I. 6 Bijuus. 2 years later. Naruto, don't do this. Konan reached out for Naruto's shoulder. You'll be chased down, you know that. The Akatsuki won't allow you to escape alive with this crime. You're going to destroy everything we've worked for. I thought you're loyal to the Akatsuki. Naruto shook her hand off. I'm only loyal to my heart, Konan-chan. I can't stand it anymore. Every night he trailed off, pausing for a long time. Konan and he had grown close during the years, even though he had tried everything in his power to distance himself from her. Once he returns to Konoha, they will instantly become mortal enemies, one loyal to the Akatsuki and the other loyal to Konoha. Konan had been the only one in the organization to know that he was the nine-tailed bijuu, but she didn't reveal his secret to the others, knowing that as a result, he'd be hunted down, even though because of the half-fusion technique, it would be impossible to separate Kyuubi from Naruto's body. They might end up killing them both, achieving nothing. I understood them. You already know how the half-fusion technique works. I understood how they feel, I understood the urge to be free and wild. He turned around to look at Konan. Just do me a favor and tell Pain-san that I'm Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. I owe them that much, that knowledge at least. They did train me powerful techniques and trusted me enough to allow me in this organization. But that, he swerved at lightning speed and knocked her out before she could see and react. Naruto sighed and walked into the room containing the special demon jars. There were 5 jars containing the 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7-tailed bijuus. He shook away the guilt feeling and stole the jars. Pain knocked on Naruto's door. There was no answer. Strange, he's not one to be this insubordinate. Pain knocked down his door. An empty cold room greeted him. Pain narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Where could that kid be? Pain walked down the corridors of the Akatsuki headquarters. He thought he saw something lying on the floor ahead of him and laughed at the thought that entered his head. Naruto had been training in the corridors. That kid trains in random places seriously and had exhausted his chakra supplies and had fallen asleep. On closer inspection, Pain widened his eyes. He slowly picked up Konan bridal style and blinked, confused. He shrugged it off though. Konan and Naruto must have been sparring and she must have exhausted her chakra supplies, those two are unbelievably close. Wait. Naruto would never just leave her on the floor like that. Something's wrong. Konan stirred and looked up at the one carrying her. She blinked to orient herself. Once her head was straight, she gasped. She grabbed Pain by the collar and whispered into his ear. Pain-kun, her voice was weak with her all groggy and all. Naruto Kyuubi Jinchuriki stole all the bijuus she trailed off, too weak to continue. Pain widened his eyes. He must have heard wrong. What? One look into her eyes and he knew she was telling the truth. Pain laid her against the wall and said, wait here. He ran into the room Naruto had entered just a few minutes ago. The room was empty. There were none of those jars inside. No. Pain quickly used telepathy to contact the rest of the members of the Akatsuki. Damn you, Naruto. Why? You ruined everything that we have ever worked for. You're the Fox Bijuu, eh? Well, get ready to run. Pain angrily slammed his palm into the wall. He had liked Naruto, who had always heeded his orders submissively until now. Clever Fox got us to trust him and then, by the time Pain knew what had happened, Naruto was already in a different country. Kyuubi-chan, they were good teachers. I feel guilty about doing this. They taught me a lot. True, Kit. However, you did the right thing. The Akatsuki is getting too powerful anyways. Still, Naruto set the jars down on the grass and sat down next to them. Are you powerful enough to defeat them all if they try to attack me, Kaiu-chan? My powers are unlimited, Kit. They're yours for the taking. Naruto nodded and unleashed all of the bijuus. There was a dramatic moment of roaring and snapping and Haku lashed out at Soku. What are you doing here, you snaky rooster? He blasted a large fireball at Soku, who in turn spat poison straight at him. If I must remember, bijuu slashed Haku in the back. Leave Soku alone. Can't we all live in peace and harmony for once? Now that I thought of it, how did we all end up here in the same area anyways? Kaku asked confused. The badger waited for an answer. The last time I remembered, I was in Earth Country. Hey, down here. Naruto yelled, calling out to the bijuus. I released you from those jars over there. Bijuu reached a conclusion. Wait, last time I remembered, 2 guys in black and red cloaks attacked me and sealed me away. So, all the bijuus stared down at Naruto. You released us. But you're just a brat. Naruto folded his arms and pouted. Thanks for the gratitude. Risked my life to rescue you, and this is how you repaid me. Now, contrary to most traditions, the bijuus do have honor in them. Haku stared for a second before saying, "We are grateful. However, just who are you?" Naruto stood up proudly. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki of Konohagakure. Jinchuriki to Kyuubi the nine-tailed fox bijuu, nice to meet ya." They all stiffened at the Kyuubi part. "Kyuubi? Hi." Naruto cocked his head. Why did they suddenly become all tensed and scared? Haku turned away. She was the most powerful of us all. Nekomata-chan and I teamed together once to attack her. Nekomata was nearly killed. As for myself, he showed Naruto a huge scar running down his back. He shivered. That was during the ancient war of the nine gods. HMPH. She could have killed me easily. Naruto sat cross-legged on the ground. There was an awkward silence. Soku then hissed out, "Now what? We all know the Akatsuki are after us." There was uproar. Proposals were made by one bijuu and the others contradict them, proposing others. Man, Kaiu-chan, what the heck? I have to say. This is the first time I've seen them gotten along like this. Kyuubi emitted a loud laugh. Normally, they'd try to tear each other's throats out. Finally Kaku roared, "Silence." They were all quiet. Though they all try to deny it, the fact still remains that Kaku was the most cunning and stealthy of them all. The proposal Kaku will make might be the most agreeable. Kaku cleared his throat. "Okay, let's look at the situation. We have three choices. 1. We can be free now and be captured by the Akatsuki later on. 2. We could manage to escape from the Akatsuki and later be sealed into a Jinchuriki, possibly a weak bratty kid. 3. We could seal ourselves inside Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, who I personally think is a good choice. We can't escape from the human civilization, so these are about our only choices." "What?" Kyuubi screamed in Naruto's head. "I ain't sharing my Jinchuriki. No way, no how." Guys, I don't think Kyuubi's very happy about that decision." Isanade growled. "Tell her that we'll all annoy her by annoying you, because yes, we know a half-fusion technique when we see one." "Arg, Kit. Fine, they can share you. Just tell them they better not bother my peaceful mornings." Kaiu-chan says fine then whoa. What about my opinions, eh? I don't want a bunch of demons sealed up inside me. Konoha already hates me for containing one demon." Naruto cried out. Haku pondered thoughtfully. "Tell you what, kid. Why don't you not tell anyone about it? It'll be our little secret. Also, in return for you letting us share you, we'll give you full control of all our powers. We can all perform the half-fusion technique all over again on you. It'll be less risky because you're already part demon because you're already half-fused with Kyuubi." Naruto sighed. "I don't know about this. Kyuubi, there's no setbacks to this, is there?" "No, Kit, there isn't. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Can't say the same for those guys though. They'll be sealed up inside you forever. They must be desperate." Naruto nodded uncertainly. "Alright then. Seal yourselves up then." "Hold on, kid, this will hurt." After a few minutes of preparation, chanting, and a blinding light, Naruto's scream could be heard throughout the forest. A year later, Naruto was sleeping in the forest, enjoying his daily visit to the bijuus. At first they were grumpy and seemed unsociable, but after he got to know them, they were all quite polite and kind in their own way. The bijuus are the following for those who aren't familiar with Japanese folklore. Isanade three-tailed turtle bijuu, Soku four-tailed half-rooster and half-snake bijuu, Haku five-tailed dog bijuu, Raijuu six-tailed weasel bijuu, Kaku seven-tailed badger bijuu. The bijuus were all in their human forms as usual. Isanade was a man with medium-length blue hair with a sharp horn on his head. Soku looked kinda like a vampire with dark orange hair. Haku was a young man with long white hair with robes, kinda like Sessamaru in Inuyasha, if any of you need an image hint. Raijuu was a thin man with spiky golden yellow hair and yellow eyes. Haku was a small teenager with blue hair tied into a ponytail. Naruto today was spending some time with Haku. "So anything interesting happening today?" Haku didn't answer. He was just staring off into space. Naruto pouted and looked in the direction Haku was staring at. His gaze met Kyuubi a distance away. Something in Naruto's brain clicked. He giggled mischievously and said, "You like Kyuubi-chan, don't you?" Haku turned to him surprised. "What? Oh, don't act all innocent. You're in love with Kyuubi-chan, aren't you?" Haku blushed, a light tinge appearing on his pale skin. "No, I'm not. You're trying to embarrass me, aren't you?" Haku, like most demons, hates to reveal the fact that he has emotions at all. His voice was calm and composed as ever, but his facial expression gave him away. Naruto grinned and danced up and down, yelling at the top of his voice, "Haku's in love with Kyuubi. Haku's in love with Kyuubi." Haku gave him a cool glare. "Right, real mature." Naruto saw at the edge of his vision Kyuubi straightening up from her gardening to stare at him, wondering if he's gone nuts. "Yo, Kaiu-chan, guess what?" Kyuubi cocked her head curiously. "What is it, little kid?" Haku sent Naruto a glare, daring him to tell Kyuubi. Naruto was only too happy to comply. Haku likes you. Ayubi stared at him confused. It was a rarity that demons fall in love, so you couldn't expect her to catch on to the fact right away. Okay then tell him if he wants to be friends, we already are. Naruto smacked his head. No, 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 no. I mean he's in love with you. Ayubi raised an eyebrow in Haku's direction. Haku himself looked as if he wanted to disappear out of sight. Is this true, Haku-kun? No. Okay, Kyubi replied simply, not really caring at all. She has better things to do than getting romance into her life. She returned to her gardening. Naruto turned to Haku. Nice. Now she'll never know that you like her and you'll never get to have her. I'm sure Kaku could steal her heart easily. Haku stiffened. Kaku was one of the more handsome demons in the world, though he doesn't exactly care for romance. Naruto continued, knowing he had gotten Haku's attention. Then the two would get married, live together, have children. Haku stood up and slowly walked towards Kyuubi, his robes billowing slightly in the wind. Naruto saw him talking to Kyuubi and Kyuubi focusing entirely on him. Then Haku was leaning in. Kyuubi was kissing him back. Naruto smirked. Now, the two were rolling on the grass, kissing like there's no tomorrow. Naruto heard Kaku whispering to Soku a distance away. Well, they are distant relatives after all. She's a fox and he's a dog. Though he's gonna be in trouble if he gets her mad like last time. Naruto rolled his eyes. Love always prevails. At the Kyuubi Haku scene, Haku's long hair flew down like a river, covering a half of both of their faces. His hand was running through her red hair and they were both kissing. It was probably the first true love between two demons that ever happened in history. Kyuubi-chan, do you actually love me? Kyuubi stared up at him with her red eyes. If I say yes, I'm committed. You'll have to wait and see, Haku-kun. I might like another demon. It was in fact a much more meaningful answer than a plain-out yes. Haku's eyes clouded. Then he smiled and leaned down to her ear, whispering, I hope you won't ever, Kyuubi-chan. His warm breath tickled her ear, making her emit a shiver. A few days later, Naruto was in Fire Country. Alright, guys, let's do this. Make sure you don't forget your bag, Kyuubi reminded him. I won't. Naruto rolled his eyes. Demons can be really fussy and nagging. I wonder if Sasuke's an Anbu yet. Sasuke, how can you not be a genin yet? You're top in your class and you. Itachi, I want to graduate when Naruto is there with me. He's not gonna be happy to be doing D-rank missions after 7 years of intense training. Sasuke and Itachi had no idea what surprises await them. Part 2, Team Itachi. Naruto grinned. He wanted to make a huge appearance. He tapped his foot by the toes and got himself ready. Alright, guys. Naruto took a deep breath and ran. Dust and dirt flew up behind him since he was running so quickly. He was running at nearly 400 miles per hour. The ambush at Konoha's gates gaped at the trail being seen a mile away. Naruto saw Konoha's gates loomed over him. He smirked and ran vertically over the wall straight up into the air. Floating there for a while, he suddenly shot straight into the direction of the Uchiha compound. The ambush would have treated it as an emergency to call the Hokage had Itachi had not told them all about a very powerful ninja returning to Konoha. Naruto landed in front of the door, panting slightly. It had been exhilarating. The door opened and Itachi was heard calling back inside to Mikoto, sure, Akasan. Do you need me to buy anything else? When he received a no for an answer, he turned around, feeling a familiar chakra in front of him. When he saw who was in front of him, he gaped. And Naruto? Is that really you? Yep. Yo, Itachi Nissan. Itachi reached out towards him and muttered, you've grown. A lot. Duh. It's been 7 years, Nissan. Naruto waited a few moments until his urge got the best of him. He launched himself at Itachi, clinging onto him like he did 7 years ago. He squeezed Itachi, whispering, I missed you. I really did. Itachi chuckled affectionately and hugged him back. You've definitely grown, Itado. Itachi widened his eyes when he saw Naruto's eyes. The cerulean blue eyes were clearer than ever, but the pupils had red tints that were so prominent, it couldn't be the trick of the light. He shook his head and took Naruto by the shoulder, leading him inside. Akasan, Itasan, Sasuke, Naruto's home. He called. Mikoto looked up from washing the dishes and gasped. Naruto, you've grown. Naruto rolled his eyes towards Itachi. Yeah, I already got that. Fugaku and Sasuke came into the room and stared. Naruto. Yep. Here I am. Naruto opened his arms wide to receive Sasuke, who rammed right into him, knocking all the wind out of him. Sasuke, you're gonna kill me. Mikoto finished with the dishes and came over to Naruto. You must be tired from the journey. Why don't you get some rest and then tell us all about your adventures afterwards? Naruto frowned at this, lowering his gaze to the floor. Actually, I've got something I got to tell you. It's important. Mikoto raised her eyebrows. Alright then, but we should get comfortable before you tell us. They went into the dining room and settled down. Fugaku then told Naruto, okay, what do you have to tell us, son? After that, the whole table went silent as Naruto told them his story. Naruto's foster family gaped. What? 5 more bijuu sealed themselves up inside me. I was training with the Akatsuki and I released them after stealing the demon jars. Basically I'm on the run from them. Makoto stood up, horrified. 5 bijuu. The Akatsuki? Itachi asked, standing up as well. Naruto waved them to sit down. Calm down, guys. Yes, Nyasen, the Akatsuki. I finished my training early so I went off to find more teachers. I had been careful, but now, they all know my secret. And the bijuu are really nice, well in their own way. They can't take over my mind, but I could tap into their powers and all that. Makoto and Itachi seemed only slightly assured. Yugaku sighed and finally announced, I trust you, Naruto, and I will always. If you say they are harmless in your body, I believe you. However, be more cautious next time. The Akatsuki could have killed both you and Kyuubi-chan. Hi, Itasen. Naruto laughed nervously. So, Sasuke, are you in Anbu yet? Sasuke hung his head. No, not yet. I wanted to wait for you. We should do everything together, including graduating. Naruto rolled his eyes, but he kept grinning. Looks like we didn't beat Itachi's record then, did we? Naruto didn't really mind staying at the academy. He wanted to stay with his age group anyways. Like he said before, he'll stay with Sasuke all the way, whether he be a Genin, a Chunin, etc. Naruto has a choice of becoming any rank except Hokage for now. Itachi shook his head. Naruto, do you want to go to the academy? If you want to, I can just send a letter to Hokage-sama and he'll allow you to. Also, if you do, I should give you a notice that the graduation exam is in 3 days. Naruto nodded. Hi, I do. I'm staying with Sasuke. 4 days later, Naruto purposely scored the lowest score in the class. That way, he could even it out so that he and Sasuke could be on the same team, just in case the Hokage says no. He could hardly care that everyone kept calling him a knucklehead and an idiot. He and Sasuke were brothers, except they were very different on the popularity scale. Girls went after Sasuke for a boyfriend, and boys go after him for a rival or an ally. Ataudo, here comes Sakura and Ino. Look out, Naruto whispered out of the corner of his mouth to Sasuke sitting right next to him. Sasuke ducked under the desk. 2 fangirls just perfect. The 2 came bursting into the room, glaring at each other. They turned to Sasuke and ran right over to him. Sasuke, will you go out with me? They both asked at the same time. Sasuke let out an inaudible whimper. Leave me alone. Just leave him alone, Ino, Sakura, Naruto snarled. He knew how much Sasuke hated fangirls. They and Itachi weren't the kind of boys to be obsessed with romance and dating. They have better things to do. Who asked you, Naruto? They both yelled. Naruto stood up, eyes flashing. Did your parents ever taught you manners or did you just don't listen to a word they teach you? Naruto wasn't about to let Sasuke get tortured. The girls will never leave him alone, it's actually more serious than it seems. Naruto saw Ino's fist coming, but he didn't dodge the punch. Ino glared at him. Why don't you just mind your own business? Naruto touched his cheek gingerly and replied calmly, he's my brother. How's it not my business? Why don't you mind your business? Ino huffed and walked off to her seat. Sakura looked from Naruto to Sasuke and then back to Naruto before she went off to her own seat. Sasuke pulled himself up from under the desk and stared at Naruto. You didn't have to do that. Now you're gonna get a bruise. He squinted at Naruto's cheek and was surprised when there wasn't even a mark on it. Kyuubi-chan, he trailed off. Naruto grinned. The one and only. She's going out with Haku-kun. Those 2 were meant for each other. Alright, everyone, attention please. Iruka called in front of the class. You'll all be assigned into teams to a jonin. There will be a last test before you will be fully recognized as a genin. Now I will assign you your teams. Naruto leaned back on his chair and listened without really listening at all. All he was really focusing on was Ino's punch. Man, that girl has anger issues. Hopefully she'll grow out of it once she's assigned to a team. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. Sasuke banged his head on the desk, Naruto did likewise. Why in the world was fate so cruel to them? Sakura seemed to be aware that she wasn't really happily received. However, she just turned around to stick her tongue out at Ino because she got to be on the same team as Sasuke. She might not be so bad. I mean, she wasn't the one who punched you in the face, right? Besides being Sasuke's fangirl, you don't really know anything about her, do you? She might actually make a good addition to the team. Sure. Most likely, all day during missions, she'll be gawking and cooing all over Sasuke. I feel sick just thinking about it. Sasuke, you're so hot. And Sasuke, that was such a cool jutsu. Really, don't kunoichis ever recognize their duties as kunoichis? They should concentrate more on training than on romance and boys. You know for sure that she doesn't work hard on her training. Naruto was quiet. No, he doesn't know. He had only met Sakura at most for 4 days. Maybe she might be a good teammate, Kyuubi. I shouldn't have been so quick on my judgments. You shouldn't. After they were dismissed, Naruto pulled Sasuke away from the crowd of fangirls. Come on, Romeo, we gotta get home to prepare for tomorrow. Itachi might want to show us a new jutsu or something. When they arrive home, Sasuke immediately complained to Itachi. Nissan, there's a fangirl on our team. She's gonna slow us down on missions, Sasuke whined. Itachi looked up at him from his desk and frowned at Sasuke's outburst. Sasuke, don't make such quick judgments, he scolded. You don't know her. I do, and you know how. She goggles at me all day. Sasuke complained. Just today, she asked me out. Yesterday, she sent me flowers. The day before, she sent me a card. She's nuts, I tell you. No one needs a fangirl on their team. Sasuke resolutely folded his arms and turned away, walking out into the garden. Itachi sighed and returned to his work. Naruto got reminded of when he was young, when he was shunned. Now, they're doing to Sakura the same thing the villagers did to him. He took a deep breath and went outside to where Sasuke was brooding on the porch. Sasuke. Sasuke glanced at him. What? Naruto sat down next to him and after a moment's silence said, maybe Sakura-chan might not be so bad. Sasuke didn't answer. Naruto continued. Remember long time ago. People shunned me and treated me as if I'm a monster. They didn't know me. Now, we're turning into the villagers. We're shunning Sakura even though we don't even know her that well. You and she are different. You focus on what's important. She focuses on romance and forgets her duties as a kunoichi. Even if I want to accept her, Naruto, I can't. She might change. Not likely she will. She's just another annoying fangirl, who is now also our teammate. That sets her status among us, Sasuke. Naruto brushed his hand on Sasuke's shoulder before leaving the Uchiha and going inside. Sasuke glanced up at a sakura tree planted in their backyard. I really want to accept her, Naruto. I really do. I tried to, too. Now it's all up to her. Naruto glanced at the clock. When's Itachi gonna arrive? We have a test to do. Sasuke laid his head on his elbow and waited patiently. If he knew Itachi, something or someone must be stalling him. Suddenly the door opened to reveal a man with silver hair and a mask covering his lower face. Sorry I'm late. A black cat crossed my path and you're not Nissan. Sasuke and Naruto cried out. The Jonin sweat dropped. My first impression of this group is that they're a couple of ninnies. Where's Itachi? He's quite busy at the moment. I'll be the one to give you your last test, the one that will decide if you are to be Genins or not. Besides, I'm much better at handing out these kinds of tests than your brother is. Don't worry about it. He's just arranging with the Hokage so that he could be free of his Anbu status and missions for now. The Jonin marched out of the room, saying, follow me. Sasuke growled. Could this day get any worse? A fangirl for a teammate and a random Jonin for a teacher. Once they reached a training area, the Jonin turned to them and said, since I'm not gonna be your teacher either way, all you need to know is that my name is Kakashi Haddock. I don't need to know your names since you won't be my students. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just here to babysit. Anyways, let's get down to business, shall we? Normally, you're supposed to take this test tomorrow, but Itachi-kun wanted to get this over with today. Now, you have until noon to get these 2 bells from me. Kakashi held up 2 bells. Those who manage to get the bells, pass. Simple to understand, you see. Naruto raised a hand. Oh, there's only 2 bells. Smart, are you? The one who doesn't have a bell by noon, fails. Kakashi tied the bells to his belt and folded his arms. Alright, begin. All 3 of them disappeared into the trees. Naruto peered at Kakashi from a branch. Caio-chan, what now? I know Itachi told us all about teamwork, but there's only 2 bells. Either way, one of us will have to fail. I'll tell you this, kid. Things aren't always what they seem. Naruto sighed. Oh, well, they can worry about who will pass later. Right now, they have to worry about teamwork. Itachi had said they might be able to set the record for teamwork, and they will. They can't expect it to be easy, right? Naruto took a deep breath. He could have gotten the bells all by himself, but that was not the point of this test. Naruto ran off to find Sasuke and Sakura. He knew exactly what he has to do. He motioned for Sasuke to follow him and led him to Sakura. Listen, we all know that this is about teamwork, right? He glanced at Sakura, who stared at him in surprise. Of course, he mentally smacked himself. He and Sasuke knew, Sakura didn't. Sakura didn't have someone like Itachi to teach her. Only 2 of us can pass. He smiled sadly. You 2 can pass. I'll stay behind. I could catch up to you guys easily. When Sasuke was about to protest, Naruto gave him a piercing look, silencing his brother immediately. Anyways, here's the plan. Sakura felt her chest tightening. Naruto was sacrificing himself for her and Sasuke. She finally realized something. All those times she teased Naruto along with the others, she had been acting as a monster. Naruto wasn't bad, he was a really good person. Before she could say anything, the plan was set immediately into action. There wasn't that much time before noon. Sakura waited up in the trees for Naruto to do his part. When Naruto appeared, she felt a twang in her chest. It was regret for all those times she treated him bad. He was a good person, a really good person. Naruto walked out calmly onto the field. Alright Kakashi, why don't we have a one-on-one Taijutsu match? Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Really now? Minato-sensei, what in the world is your son planning? Why is he so confident? Naruto got into Taijutsu stance and charged. Kakashi blocked a punch coming straight at his face. Naruto then launched a barrage of punches and kicks. Kakashi widened his eyes, he had to focus entirely on Naruto, not just a bit of his attention. Naruto then looked him in the eye and smirked. You lost, Kakashi. He jumped back and stood in front of Kakashi. Kakashi felt for the bells, but he found them gone. He gaped. How? Sasuke and Sakura came out, standing next to Naruto, holding up their bells. We won your game, Kakashi. Kakashi's expression returned to its emotionless mask once again. So, Naruto, you failed. As a sacrifice to pass your teammates. Naruto smiled brightly. Hi, I am. Fail me, Kakashi. Sasuke gripped his bell until his knuckle turned white. It's not fair. Stupid test. He then glared at Kakashi and suddenly chucked the bell at Kakashi's face. Kakashi caught it of course. You know what? I don't want to pass. I don't care. Fail me as well. Sakura at the same time threw hers on the ground, surprising both boys, and said, fail me too. I don't care either. To Naruto's surprise, Sasuke and Sakura put their arms around him. Sasuke smiled and said, remember when you and Itachi sacrificed a whole day of the mission just to come to my orientation? We stick together no matter what. Then they both looked at Sakura, who lowered her eyes, remembering that she was practically the odd one out of their group. Sasuke smiled and laid a hand on her shoulder. You just proved to both of us that you're no ordinary fangirl. Sakura widened her eyes. Did she heard right? Did Sasuke actually compliment her of all people? Sasuke never compliments anyone. Tears welled up in her eyes. She was finally accepted into their circle. All three of them looked up at Kakashi. Pass all of us or fail all of us. We're a team and we stick together no matter what. Kakashi glared at all of them. Is that all you have to say? You're just gonna fail yourselves for each other? Hi. Then I only have one thing to say to all of you. He suddenly smiled underneath his mask. You all passed and set the most dramatic record for teamwork. Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura stared at each other unbelievingly. Did they just pass? Did they heard right? Kakashi's smile widened. You all showed pure teamwork and that was the whole purpose of this test. You passed. Sasuke smiled, relieved. He turned to Naruto and hugged him. We passed, Nissan, I can't believe it, he whispered into his ear. Then he turned to Sakura, pausing before he gave her a full-hearted hug. Sakura gasped in surprise. Sasuke-kun. Kakashi chuckled at the scene before leaving the group silently, as to not disturb the moment, to report to the Hokage and Itachi. They will become great. One day possibly they'll become the most famous ninjas in history. They all passed with perfect marks, Kakashi announced to the Hokage and Itachi, who was signing the last of the papers. They both looked up, surprised. It was rare enough that Kakashi actually admits that a team passed, but Kakashi actually complimenting a team. Was this really the Kakashi they knew? Itachi gawked. My team passed. With perfect marks no less. Kakashi nodded proudly. Hi, they did. Itachi was impressed. Sasuke had hated Sakura. How then did they work so well together? He knew that they'd do anything to pass, in the sense of having to deal with a very annoying teammate, and that they will pass, but with perfect marks, too. He smiled and said, that's my brothers for you. They can do anything, even impressing me. Chapter 3. Journey to the Land of Waves. Part I. Clearing deceit. Sasuke sweat dropped. Naruto was arguing with the Sandaime again. No one knew about Naruto's 7-year absence except the Hokage, his family, etc. Naruto ignored him. Come on, old man, give us a better mission. So far today, since morning, we've done gardening, babysitting, rescuing cats, walking dogs, and cleaning up garbage. I don't see Itachi doing all that. Ninjas aren't supposed to do chores, they're supposed to do real missions like being bodyguards and stuff. He announced loudly. We're genins already, for pity's sake. I'm not gonna spend another minute doing chores for old ladies. Isn't that what their children are for? He crossed his arms and sat down, his back turned to the Hokage. Sasuke sighed. They have been doing really stupid missions so far. He himself was already running out of patience. Itachi placed a hand on Naruto's head and said, alright, Naruto, that's enough now. The Hokage chuckled. If Naruto wants a harder mission, I might as well give it to him. They all stared at the Hokage. Did the Sandaime really give in that easily? Here we go. You can be bodyguards on a mission for a bridge builder to the Land of Waves. You are to guard him while he builds his bridge. Basically that's all. Just guard him from thieves, bandits, etc. The Hokage looked up. Well, are you willing to take it? Yeah. Naruto jumped up and down. We're finally going on a mission, a real mission. I'll show you your client then. Tazuna, come out please. You'll be leaving with Itachi's team. The door behind them opened and an old man came through the doorway, looking slightly drunk. He peered over his glasses at Itachi, Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura. What is this? A bunch of teens. That Jonin, I bet, isn't even an adult yet. I'm paying for you to guard me, not to play with me. Itachi sighed. His age can really be a problem for him. Don't worry. We're more than a match for bandits and thieves, Tazuna-san. Tazuna glared drunkenly at his team, his gaze landing on Naruto. Hey, shrimp, yeah, you blondie over there. Am I seriously gonna expect you to guard me, sunshine? Learning manners after living with the Uchihas and learning through watching his instructors that yelling in these situations won't help and that friendliness normally will. Naruto glanced at the sake bottle in Tazuna's hand and asked, hey, is that sake from Waves? I heard it's the best. Itachi, Sasuke, and Sakura stared at him. Since when does Naruto drink? Tazuna's eyebrows lifted in surprise and he glanced at the bottle in his hand. Yes, why yes it is. Kid, do you drink? Naruto shrugged. A bit. Have a sip then. Tazuna threw him the half-empty sake bottle. Naruto caught it and poured the liquid down his throat. The bijuus gave him resistance to getting drunk, so he didn't have to worry about losing control. How do you guys like it? A little too sweet. Needs to be a little more fiery. Kyuubi, it's fine. Needs to be sweeter in fact. No, it doesn't. I want it bitterer. Naruto's sweat dropped. He shouldn't have asked. Their argument was going to last for hours. Arigato, Tazuna-san. It tastes good. Everyone gawked except Tazuna, who grinned and told Naruto, tell you what. When we get back to Waves, I'll show you the best sake Waves has to offer. Itachi turned to Sasuke. Since when does Naruto put the suffix "n" at the end of someone's name? He had never heard Naruto say something like that before, except to some of the Uchihas and his teachers. Once everyone assembled at the gates, Itachi started off, not bothering to assign a formation to go in. Itachi had never cared for formations, believing that ninjas work better if they just go on naturally however they pleased. Tell me, any of you, how much you know of the Land of Waves. He glanced behind him. I personally never had a mission there before. Naruto shrugged. I've been there once. We were just visiting really for me to know a bit about it. It wasn't that far from Kurigakure, so I could visit for a few days or so. The country was small, so it didn't need its own ninja village. It's basically just a trading center. The main difference that separates it from most countries is that they allow slavery there. Tazuna turned to him. You've been to Waves before? Naruto nodded. I was training in water techniques. He glanced at a puddle on the side of the road. He made a motion, but he continued talking casually and loudly as always. Hey, Sasuke, did you practice with the katana I gave you? Sasuke smirked. You didn't think I was going to waste such a powerful weapon, did you? Suddenly, chains wrapped themselves around Itachi and in one swift motion, two ninjas tore him apart. Sakura gasped. Itachi-sensei. Naruto and Sasuke unsheathed their katanas at exactly the same moment. The ninjas charged at Tazuna, surprising both ninjas. Naruto sheathed his sword and grabbed Sasuke, throwing him at the ninjas. Sasuke gritted his teeth and slashed at the chain. The katana sliced through it like a hot knife cutting a stick of butter. The ninjas turned their attention towards the genins, gaping at the useless chain. Sasuke smirked. He twirled his katana back into its sheath and took out two kunes. Naruto, Sakura, let's tie these guys up. The ninjas attacked them, running straight at Sasuke. Sasuke threw his kunes to Sakura and Naruto, who were on each side of him. They ran at the ninjas and once they passed them, they exchanged kunes. The moment the exchange was over, the plan became clear. The chakra strings were clear, the ninjas were trapped. Naruto and Sakura tied them to a tree and Sasuke rolled his eyes. Okay, Nissan, you can come out now. Itachi came out from the bushes, clapping his hands. Good job, team. Good teamwork. That was the best performance I've seen from genins yet. Then he turned to Tazuna, frowning. We need to talk, Tazuna-san. Tazuna sighed. He couldn't hide the truth forever. He followed Itachi to a spot a distance away. Naruto sat down at the base of a tree and turned to the ninjas tied up. Nice try. We're not retarded. We know it didn't rain yesterday. The Chuninins glared at him. How did you defeat us? Naruto turned to Sasuke and Sakura. With them, it was easy too. Besides, you're just Chuninins in rank with no skills to prove it. Itachi came back with Tazuna right at that moment. He seemed indignant though unconcerned. Seems like we were duped. This is no C rank mission. This is more of a B rank, he informed them. I leave the decision to you guys if you want to go on or not. Of course we want to. I've been waiting for missions like this one for days. Naruto cried out. Sasuke nodded. True. No one wants to just battle thieves and bandits. Itachi turned to Sakura. What about you? We can't continue unless all of us agree to this. I'm fine with going. Itachi turned to Tazuna and said, his voice soft but hinted warnings, as for you, no more lies. You will pay us what is due for this mission, the amount of money required for a B rank at the very least. I won't allow us to get cheated. Also, if you lie again, we'll leave you wherever you are and never come back for you. Even if you're attacked in front of us, we'll leave you. His voice showed no deception or bluffing, but his eyes held a gleam that clearly showed he'd rather be cheated out of his money than do such a thing. Tazuna nodded gloomily. This just wasn't his day. Itachi turned to Naruto and widened his eyes. Naruto glanced at his hand. The ninja's chain scratched it a bit, but it would be fine. Soku's the bijuu of poison, so Naruto was immune to even the deadliest poisons. Don't worry, Nyasan. It'll be fine. Itachi seemed unconvinced, but he just nodded and said, alright then, let's move, kiddos. The rest of the journey was quiet. Mist was settling in the closer they got towards waves. Sasuke whispered to Naruto, do you know anyone here? All of my instructors were wanderers. They normally stay in the same country, but they don't normally stay at one place very long. The mist was getting thick, so Naruto activated his Byakugan while Sakura wasn't looking. Kyuubi and the Bijuus allowed him to do all kinds of neat things from copying bloodlines to destroying them. Duck. All of them ducked as Zanbatsu whizzed right over them and stuck to a tree. A man with bandages covering his lower face appeared, standing on top of the sword. He glared at the small group, his gaze landing on Naruto. Naruto quickly deactivated his Byakugan and glared at the swordsman. Sasuke whispered to him out of the corner of his mouth, his bandages remind me of Kakashi. Naruto didn't answer but continued to glare. What are you doing here, Zabuza-sensei? Itachi and the whole group asked the same question, what? Naruto sighed, his glare discontinued. Before I trained with the Akatsuki, I trained with some of the 7 swordsmen of Mist, he whispered to Itachi and Sasuke, who both stared at him. Naruto rolled his eyes and walked up to Zabuza. After a moment's silence, Zabuza asked, what are you doing here, brat? We're on a mission. Let me take a guess. You're working for Gato. Naruto looked back at Itachi for confirmation of the name which he got. Zabuza shrugged. I'm on my way to accept the mission. However, I haven't accepted it yet. Naruto gave him a look, which made Zabuza burst out in laughter. Once he got full control of himself, he told him, don't worry, little brat, I'll cancel it. I don't want to battle against you. He pulled his sword from the tree and began to walk away. Naruto yelled out at the last minute. Hey, aren't you gonna help us? Zabuza stopped and turned around. Why should I? Naruto tapped his foot, thinking. Well hey. A light bulb appeared above his head. Why don't you help us and return to Konoha with us? Don't you get tired of wandering? No. Naruto sighed. I didn't want to do this, sensei, but his puppy dog eyes were at full power. Zabuza blinked. That won't work on me, okay, fine, you brat. He huffed and muttered under his breath about troublesome blondes the whole way to Tazuna's house. Naruto cheered. It's so easy to persuade you. You're getting too soft. Evil, nut-headed blonde. Itachi chuckled. I know what you mean, Zabuza-san. His puppy dog eyes are irresistible. They're the most dangerous technique next to his katana. Tazuna's house was small and simple. There was a small kitchen dining room and a few bedrooms. There was also a small living room. In the kitchen, a woman was washing dishes. She turned around when the door opened and smiled. You must be shinobis from Fire Country. I know our house isn't much, but I think we can manage. Itachi shrugged. We could always sleep outside. Sakura stared at him as if he was nuts. What? On missions on travels, you'll have to learn to sleep under the stars. Inside a small restaurant not far from Tazuna's house, a girl was sweeping the floors. Her hair flowed down to her middle back in beautiful strands. However, she was thin for her age, and her brown eyes were blank and death-like. Haku had been broken long time ago. Beatings and torture crushed her spirit, leaving nothing but an empty shell of which she was long time ago. After she was on the streets for a few days, slave traders captured and enslaved her. Her bloodline limit was useless because of the collar around her neck. The collar was permanent, becoming one with her flesh. She was broken, completely. She had learned that her fate couldn't be changed. This was what and who she is, forever a slave. There was no hope for her. The collar was impossible to take off. It also forces her to obey her masters whether she wants to or not. Girl, wipe the counters when you're done. After that, wash the dishes. Her master glanced at her form. Haku nodded. She had lost her voice long time ago. She wasn't mute, she just forgot how to speak and how to make sounds. She could understand what people were saying, but she couldn't get them to understand what she was trying to say. Eventually, she gave up altogether and her feelings were locked away. Did you hear me, slave? Her master sneered. What? Are you deaf now, too? He knew full well that she couldn't respond and that even if she didn't hear him, she'd still do what he ordered because the collar will force her to. Haku didn't say anything. She continued to work silently. This happens every day. He taunts her about her lost voice. She stayed silent and her head was forced up by her chin. Her master was smirking. When I ask you something, you're supposed to answer me. Haku's eyes stayed downcast, avoiding her master's eyes. You just ignored me. With that, he grabbed Haku and pushed her into the back room. Now, you know the punishment for transgressions like that, right? Haku stumbled forward and fell to her knees. It happens every day, so how can she not know? She took off her top and got down on her hands and knees. She'll feel the pain, but she won't feel any grudge towards her master. After all, he was only doing what he was allowed to do. Her master unraveled a whip and cracked it at her back. Part 2, No Free Will. Sasuke woke up to the smell of breakfast cooking. He jumped out of bed and ran into the kitchen, where Tsunami and Naruto were cooking. Sakura was watching them, obviously trying to remember the recipes, and Itachi was at the table, reading the newspaper. Every now and then, Itachi would take a sip of black coffee, unsweetened. Izuna was laying out plans for the bridge and studying them, pondering and erasing notes here and writing some there. There was also a little boy whom Sasuke had never met before. He was quiet and just sitting at the table, doing nothing. Sasuke took a seat next to him and decided not to bother his thinking time. Hey, Itachi-Nisan, when are we setting out for the bridge? Itachi looked over his paper and replied in a voice that reminded Sasuke of Kakashi, our client needs to get some more supplies before we set out. The supplies will take a while to arrive, so we have a break today. Explore the village and do whatever. He returned to his paper and muttered something about breakfast too good to wait for. Sasuke chuckled and glanced at Itachi's coffee cup. He cocked his head and filled a cup with warm water, switching his coffee cup in that cup. He was bored and Naruto's mischievous attitude was rubbing off on him. Itachi reached for his cup. He paused before drinking and placed the cup back into its former position. He sighed and put down his paper, standing up to go over to the cabinet to get some coffee mix. Sasuke, if you want some coffee, just ask and I'll make some for you. You don't have to switch glasses. You want some sugar because the cup that you're holding, the one that's actually mine, doesn't have any sugar in it. Sasuke took a sip and spluttered. How can you drink coffee like this? He cried. It tastes like plain coffee, I know. I like it that way. Itachi handed Sasuke a couple of sugar packets. Tsunami laid bowls of stew in front of each of them. Tell me if you want more, there's plenty left. Naruto sat across from Sasuke, next to Itachi, and Sakura took the seat next to Sasuke, across from Itachi. Oh, man, this smells so good. You cooked it. I only helped, Sasuke. Naruto took a mouthful of the stew and sighed contentedly. Tastes like heaven. Hey, where's sensei anyways? Encouraged, Sasuke took a bite and hurriedly gulped down the whole bowl. However, while Naruto was immune to the hot liquid, Sasuke burned his tongue and had to cool it down with ice water. Ish goosh. He said, his tongue floppy. Then he shrugged at Naruto's question. Woo noosh. He kush be any varish. Suddenly Zabuza burst through the door and sat down on one of the chairs. He was obviously not in a good mood. Then again, from what Naruto knows, Zabuza is never a morning person, even though he wakes up earlier than most people. Naruto also learned to just ignore his bad mood. Hey, sensei, what are you so grumpy about? Nightmares? Zabuza glared at him. Listen, brat, I don't have nightmares ever. Naruto rolled his eyes. Sure you don't. Hey, I got an idea. How about you and Sasuke have a kinjutsu match? If you win, we'll treat you out to whatever restaurant you want and admit that you never have nightmares before. If Sasuke wins, you'll have to admit you had a nightmare today and treat us out. Oh, you also have to be in a good mood every morning from now on. Sasuke and Zabuza turned to each other and yelled at the same time, deal. Itachi didn't even look up from his paper. Sakura, make sure they don't do anything stupid and help Naruto referee. Hi, sensei. Sakura came outside with Naruto and the duo. Sasuke and Zabuza faced each other and took out their weapons, Sasuke with his katana and Zabuza with his zanbatsu. Zabuza attacked first, but Sasuke was smaller, so he was also quicker, dodging it completely. Sasuke twirled around and swung his katana, aiming for Zabuza's chest. He wouldn't stab, of course. Zabuza countered at the last minute. However, Sasuke's katana created a chip on Zabuza's large zanbatsu, surprising Zabuza, who turned to glare at Naruto. You gave him that, didn't you? No fair. Naruto shrugged. It was a birthday present for him. Sasuke smirked and lunged forward while Zabuza was distracted, pointing his katana at Zabuza's throat. You lost and equal loser and champion, I win and equal winner and champion. Sakura squealed. Go, Sasuke. She jumped up and down. Naruto sweat dropped. Zabuza growled. Hey, you cheated. I was distracted. Who told you to put your guard down? Sasuke sheathed his katana with a smug and content expression on his face. I won fair and square. Now you know what happens. Zabuza pouted, mumbling, fine, I had a nightmare today. Also, I'll treat you guys. Sakura thought for a second. I want a really fancy restaurant or a Jimmy ramen. Naruto pondered for a second. Let's just go to the closest restaurant for lunch. Good idea. When they returned to the kitchen, Itachi was still reading the newspaper. He looked up and said, if Sasuke lost, I'm not gonna pay. Sasuke pouted. No faith at all, I swear. I won, so do you want to go out for lunch? Zabuza sensed treat. Itachi raised his eyebrows in surprise. You won? Yep. Zabuza was so weak, he couldn't even defend himself. You brat. I was distracted, talking to the troublesome blonde. Itachi turned back to his paper, pondering and wiggling the pencil in his hand, and mumbled, stupid Sudoku puzzle. Can't do the crossword either. Sasuke looked over his shoulder and whispered into his ear, this is your conscience speaking to you. The first line is 1, 6, 4, 8, 9, 2, 5, 7, and 3. Itachi wrote it down and jumped up. Yes. My conscience is always right. Then he whispered to Sasuke, thanks for being my conscience, Ataudo. No problem, Nissan. Everyone knows that you suck at solving puzzles. It's the least I can do. After all, I am your younger brother. Itachi fed and asked, so, where are we going to eat? To the nearest restaurant. Naruto pointed out the door. Follow me, everyone, I know exactly where I'm going. He marched out the door. Itachi moved his hand through his hair. At this rate, we'll be lost in a foreign village before we leave the house. It was true. Naruto went out the door leading to the living room. Ataudo, the door to the outdoors is this way. He called, opening the door on the opposite side of the kitchen. I think that we should follow me. He paused before walking out. By the way, I think it's better if we act like civilians and not ninjas. Slick directional skills, idiot, Isanade muttered. Naruto stuck his tongue out as he took off his tete-a-tete and followed Itachi out the right door. Not my fault. You guys didn't tell me. We shouldn't have to. If you'd use your brain, you'd be able to know what we know. Haku was woken up abruptly by a kick from her master. Wake up. Customers are coming, her master growled. He sent her another kick before leaving to greet the customers. Haku winced as she got up from the floor. She just hoped her wounds didn't reopen from last night. She walked out to the front from the back room and waited for the customers to come in and order. Everything was the same like every other day. Hey, I heard Tazuna's still trying to build the bridge. Doesn't he get that his life will be in danger? He hired leaf nins to guard him. They're just kids. Even their jonin was only 17. One of the customers was saying to another, he's a fool. Idiot. We don't need another death. Another death? You mean deaths? He's leading the leaf nins to their doom. The first one hissed. Haku could care less about the leaf nins. Ninjas were hired before. They use their authority to kill those who go against them. But when they're faced with stronger shinobis, they ran like cowards. Arrogant was how Haku always imagined all ninjas to be. Azuna's starting tomorrow. Haku sighed mentally. Her master supported Geto though no one knows about it. Those that do were dead. He was a shinobi himself, killing those who opposed Geto. Haku always has to come along to help out. She looked up at the clock. Noon was approaching. Suddenly the doors opened and 5 people came in as if on cue. There was a pink-haired girl, a blonde boy, a raven-haired boy, a taller young man with gray-blue hair tied in a ponytail, and another much older man with bandages covering the bottom half of his face. They seemed to be just civilians coming in. The blonde was joking around with the raven and the girl, while the 2 older men were discussing about something casual. They sat down at a table near the wall and were waiting patiently for a waiter or waitress. Haku walked over to them and handed each one of them a menu. Hey, Sasuke, they seem to have everything on here, even onigiri and ramen. Itachi Nissan chose a good restaurant. The blonde yelled to the raven. The one called Sasuke grinned and turned to Haku, I'd like onigiri, please. I'd like spicy beef flavored ramen, please. The blonde jumped up and put an arm around the young man next to him. Hey, Itachi Nissan, I bet you're gonna order Pocky, right? So those 2 are brothers. Unbelievable. Haku had never seen 2 more different people. The one called Itachi chuckled and shook his head. I can't depend on Pocky for lunch, Naruto. I guess I'll have onigiri, too, with Pocky for dessert. Zabuza sighed. Pigeon eggs I guess. Sakura scanned the menu before ordering, syrup-coated anko dumplings, please. Haku nodded and wrote everything down, walking to the kitchen to cook their orders. What a strange group. Naruto, meanwhile, was groaning and complaining to Sasuke. Ugh, the Bijuus won't shut up. Currently, Haku and Soku are arguing about if Kyuubi likes roses or tulips. Kaku and Isanade are arguing with Raiju and Kyuubi about who I like. Sasuke thought for a second. I vote tulips. Roses? Tulips, Itachi muttered. This is a really random conversation, Naruto announced. He sighed and laid his head on his arms. I'm hungry. You think? Haku came out with a tray loaded with their orders a few minutes later. She set them in front of them and signed in joy. She wasn't expecting them to know what her hand signs meant. Sign language wasn't widely understood or practiced. However, Naruto, who had learned sign language just for the sake of learning it, recognized the sign immediately. He had never thought that it would come in handy one day. He signed back arigato, miss. Haku widened her eyes in surprise. You know sign language? Hi. Learned it a while back. Naruto, what are you doing? Sakura asked. They were all staring at the two signing back and forth to each other. Sign language. People use it if they're mute and can't talk. They use their hands instead. Sasuke cocked his head. So are waitresses mute? Naruto smacked him in the head hard. Don't say stuff like that. You're basically insulting her because you pointed out her handicap. Haku signed, people say that all the time. I'm used to it by now. She was feeling something that she hasn't felt for a long time. It was such a long time that she couldn't recognize the feeling. All she knew was that she liked it. Too bad then. Sasuke is not gonna insult you even if you are used to it. Sakura was fascinated. Naruto, can you teach me? Sure thing. Naruto made a few movements with his hand and bade Sakura to mimic them. Sakura awkwardly signed to Haku, who had a bit of trouble understanding what she was signing. She's okay, but I didn't really catch that. Naruto grinned. She said you're pretty. Haku blinked and a pink tinge appeared on her pale cheeks. Thank you, where are you from? You don't seem to be from around here. Fire country. We just arrived here yesterday. Haku stopped signing, looking troubled, but she forced herself to reality. She knew she couldn't spend time with these people anyways, they were just customers. However, something inside her felt crushed when Naruto told her that. Then she decided to ask another question. Are you shinobis? Hi, Naruto signed. How do you know? Haku ignored the question. So they were not just customers, tourists from Fire Country, they were the Leaf Nins hired to protect Azuna. Haku immediately crushed the igniting feelings and friendliness she felt for the ninjas. They were going to be killed anyways. She turned abruptly towards the back, confusing the shinobis with her sudden hostility. Naruto stared after her. What's with her? Then he narrowed his eyes. Something reddish was seeping through her shirt. Naruto started and grabbed her shoulder, making her cringe in pain. Naruto lightened his grip and muttered, there's blood. Haku whirled around, slapping Naruto's hand away, and ran towards the back, knowing that Naruto had seen the blood and the patterns they make, forming lash marks. From what she knows, ninjas are not to be considered idiotic. Most were clever, though they might seem slow on the outside. If Naruto really was one of these ninjas, he could form the conclusion that she was a slave if he knows that slavery was allowed in waves, that is. Haku had enjoyed, even though she knew full well it wouldn't last long, a conversation where she was considered equal to them despite her handicap. Now that they know what she is, they won't treat her the same, as an equal. Once she reached the security of the empty room, she recalled the feelings that she felt during the encounter. She hadn't felt feelings as strong as those for a long time. The Leaf Nins had brought her close to reality, to realization of the situation she was in. They had made her feel somewhat alive, especially the blonde, or Naruto as his companions called him. They had brought her close to reality and liveliness, but not quite. Haku tried to push them aside, but the image of the Leaf Nins held tight on her mind. They were on opposite sides of a battle, though she didn't want to be on the side she has to be on. She doesn't have a choice, she doesn't have free will like them. Meanwhile, Naruto had lost his appetite. Even ramen doesn't appeal to him any longer. Itachi, concerned if Naruto was sick or not, asked, Naruto, what's wrong? Don't you want to eat your ramen? Naruto shook his head, pushing his bowl away, disgusted. Then he mumbled, she was a slave. This food was forced to be made by her. I'm not touching it. He crossed his arms and turned away resolutely. Sakura stared at her food. A slave. Suddenly, none of them felt appealed to the food anymore. Itachi just paid for the food and they left, leaving them untouched. After a while after their departure, Haku came out to clean their area when she saw a note next to the money. Sorry if we insult you by not eating all of our orders. We just lost our appetite. Thanks a lot though. Emotions swirled around in Haku's mind. It had been such a long time since she experienced all these strong emotions that they left her confused. She couldn't understand nor pinpoint any of the emotions at all. She forced herself to just ignore the emotions and continue with what she does every day. However, the emotions kept nagging on her mind. Part 3, Determination. Naruto was quiet as he sat down for dinner. His mind was still on Haku, her gentle ways, and most of all, her dull, lifeless eyes. A spark of life had appeared in their lifeless depths when she saw Naruto could use sign language. However, it disappeared when she heard they were from Fire Country. I'll be starting tomorrow. Get yourselves ready. Gato will be sending mercenaries to stop me from completing and finishing the bridge. Tazuna turned to Itachi. Are you sure you and the kids are gonna be able to protect me? Itachi narrowed his eyes. Do you trust us or not? I believe we could. Azuna looked away, slightly embarrassed. It's just that ninjas hired before have all been killed. Gato always wins, at least in the past. Then Inari, Tazuna's grandson, spoke up, his voice hollow, and he always will in the future too. He'll kill you, just like he killed the past shinobis. Tsunami gasped. Inari. What? It's true. Sasuke stood up abruptly, his face filled with cold anger. What right have you to say that? Do you control our lives? Or do you control only your own? Can you see the future? Can you see fate itself? Who are you to decide our fate? His voice was calm, but it had a terrible coldness in it that made Inari shiver involuntarily, though he didn't back down. Inari growled, what right do I have? I went through more than you ever did. You shinobis just enjoy life. Does Fire Country look like waves? Does it? I doubt it. I bet you all lived comfortably in your homes, knowing that you're safe and sound. Have you even seen a death of your loved ones or just a death at all? Sasuke gritted his teeth but didn't say anything. I thought so. Naruto was standing up now, too. Oh, yeah. Think you went through so much? Both my parents die, I don't have any blood relatives alive, and the villagers despise me. I wonder which one of us is better off, huh? That's enough, Naruto, Sasuke. Sit down, Itachi ordered. Naruto and Sasuke hesitated, seeming to argue, but after a few minutes, they sat down without a word of argument. Itachi sighed, relieved that no fight was going to break. We're just here to do our job, guys. Inari interrupted him. You're gonna fail your mission though. Why don't you just give up? Then Naruto's voice rang throughout the room. His voice was calm, surprising everyone, even himself. He was anything but calm on the inside. Because true shinobis don't ever give up. That's the way of the ninja. Inari widened his eyes. Then he stood up and marched outside, scowling. What the heck's with him? Sasuke muttered. Tsunami sighed. It happened a long time ago. She began telling them everything from how Kaiza met Inari to his death sentence by Gato. I'm not gonna go deep into this. It's in the episodes. Like everyone else in this country, his spirit was broken by Kaiza's death. Her voice had saddened throughout her story, and by now, it sounded dejected and somewhat hopeless. There was an awkward silence after her story. Sasuke looked away. I didn't know. His eyes were staring off into space, deep in thought. Itachi smiled sadly. None of us did, Atauto. Then he added, missions are like this. Sometimes the real mission involves more than just the mission in question. He yawned and stood up, finished with his meal. He went to his room to retire while Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura went to the living room to just talk and enjoy each other's company before their big day tomorrow. Shidarsu chuckled. However, his chuckle wasn't a good sign. Look what we have here. Tazuna's still gonna try and build the bridge. He looked up from the letter request in his companions' faces. Gato wants us to get rid of him. Rananu, who continued to clean his katana, remained emotionless, showing neither enthusiasm nor fear. He hired kids. They're not gonna be much fun. He must be desperate. He glanced up at Shidarsu. Shidarsu was their indisputable leader, the most powerful and clever of the three. How's your pet? Even though they are kids, she could come in handy during the battle. Shidarsu reached into the darkness and roughly pulled out Haku by her arm. You don't have to ask how she is. She's right here, right? Are you going to take her along? Of course. It's always fun to let her help out. Shidarsu tightened his grip on Haku's arm, making her winced. They'll be surprised. All the shinobis in the past were. He felt Haku trembling in his hand. Cruelty always surprises them, they've gone soft over the years, especially the Leaf Nins. Did you know most of them value their friends and teammates more than the mission itself? All three of them laughed. They themselves thought of each other as nothing more than rivals and teammates. They could care less if one or the other dies, the only reason they look out for each other was that they might have a use for the other two later. Hirashinaru smirked, glancing at Haku. Aw, Shidarsu, your pet scared. His cruel eyes lingered over Haku's face, which was filled with fear and terror at what's to be expected the next day. Rananu sighed. Kuro-kun, thank you for stating the obvious. Shidarsu looked back down at the letter, ignoring Kuro's and Rananu's bickering. This is interesting. What? It says here that the Jonin they have is a 17-year-old Uchiha. Shidarsu paused. He must be extremely confident in his abilities if he is willing to go through the whole mission, knowing how many shinobis have died in the past. He leaned back. Tell me, how many 17-year-old Jonin Uchihas do we know who'd waste their time taking on genin teams? Kuro widened his eyes, unbelieving of what Shidarsu was insinuating. There has been a record of only one currently. Exactly. Uchihas were known throughout the ninja world for their arrogance, most considering themselves above training genins. Answer me this. Who is this Uchiha? Itachi Uchiha, a prodigy of the Uchiha clan. Anticipation filled the air around them. Itachi Uchiha would definitely be a formidable and worthy opponent, they were going to have fun tomorrow. Hard IV. Chance a choice. Sasuke, stop hogging the bathroom. Shut up, Naruto, I'm not the one who takes 2-hour showers. Would you both just stop bickering and hurry up? There are other people in line here. Itachi knocked on the door. Sasuke, hurry up. You've been in there for an hour. I know you like spending a long time on your hair, but this is ridiculous. Sakura squealed. She still has her fangirl personalities, even though she recognized that there is more to life than just chasing after a hot boy. No wonder his hair is so cute. If you consider a duck's butt cute, Naruto mumbled under his breath. Then an idea popped up in his head. He yelled through the door, Sasuke, Sakura thinks you're cute when you do your hair this long. Sasuke slammed open the door and turned to Sakura, we can never be together. Don't you get that? Never. He marched down the hall to the kitchen. Finally. Naruto stormed into the bathroom to freshen up. Itachi chuckled. Thank goodness I woke up before everyone. He leaned against the wall, talking to Sakura so she wouldn't get impatient. After a few minutes, he went off to plan with Zabuza about how they should split guard duty, as they can't all guard Tazuna at once, they need breaks. Because of the seriousness of this mission, either Itachi or Zabuza has to be with the team at all times. Once decided and prepared, they set out for the half-finished bridge. Zabuza and Sakura stayed back to guard the house, while Itachi and his brothers went off to guard Tazuna. Tazuna was nervous even with the ninjas protecting him, despite Itachi assuring him. When Tazuna began working, Naruto and Sasuke had asked if they could help, but Itachi told them that none of them know anything about bridge building, so they'd just end up getting in the way. Hey, guys, I'll get us some drinks, K. Tazuna-san must be thirsty, too. And don't leave him out of your sight. Itachi stood up and walked towards the marketplace, leaving an extra nervous Tazuna and his brothers to themselves. Even though he doesn't know how strong his enemies are, he was quite confident that Naruto and Sasuke could defend Tazuna by themselves. Sasuke sighed and sat cross-legged down on the floor of the bridge. This is a bore. I want some adventure. Naruto rolled his eyes and yawned. He had to agree with Sasuke. He was expecting a bunch of powerful ninjas coming at them at all sides all the time and that they would be fighting for their lives. However, what really happens was exactly the opposite. Suddenly a sword whirled towards Tazuna's back. Naruto instinctively grabbed the sword by the hilt before it stabbed him in the back. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and stood up in battle position. Where are you? Show yourselves. Seems like we're too late, Rananu. Itachi left the kids to themselves. I would have wanted to fight him for a challenge. The voice was smooth, oily, and sly. These kids will have to do until he gets back I guess. HMPH, there's only 2 little brats. This will be easy. Sasuke smirked. Easy. Try us then. Naruto threw down the sword he was holding and unsheathed his katana. Obviously their enemies don't know what they're dealing with. Yeah, what he says. Mist began to fog up their vision. When it cleared, there were 3 ninjas standing in front of them. One had long black hair tied in a ponytail, another had a mask on and was dressed completely in black, the last one was the shortest and had a katana in his hand, the katana that had nearly killed Tazuna. Tazuna stepped back, but he whispered to Sasuke and Naruto, if you don't think you can stop them, just run. 3 deaths aren't needed if they can be avoided. Naruto rolled his eyes. Even if we're weak and decide to run, they'll catch us anyways. He turned to Sasuke. Ready, Ataudo. Hi. Sakura slit another one's throat. It was killing her to kill them, but she learned long time ago that shinobis are trained to kill. Training with Sasuke, Naruto, and Itachi, she became stronger than she would have with another team. Another gangster attacked her from behind. She growled and twirled around, her kunai cutting through the air into his throat. Take that. She turned around to see Inari and Tsunami at the edge of her vision. Run. The gang was too numerous, they'll be trapped if they don't run out in time. Inari nodded and pulled on his mom's hand, taking her into the forest. He glanced back a few times to see Sakura and Zabuza killing a bunch of gangsters at a time. Once in the forest, they waited for Zabuza and Sakura to finish up with the gang. Thinking they were safe, they didn't heard footsteps coming up from behind them. Suddenly, Tsunami screamed as someone grabbed her from behind. Inari turned around to see 2 gangsters tying up his mom. His instincts told him to run, and he was about to do just that when a flashback stopped him. Flashback, ah, my dog. Inari screamed. I can't swim. His dog was drowning. However, Inari couldn't bring himself to jump into the water for fear of drowning as well. He was standing at the edge of the harbor, looking down helplessly at his dog trying desperately to swim. Well, if you want it, go save it. A kid pushed Inari into the water, obviously intending to drown him. There was a splash as Inari hit the water. He gasped for breath, he was drowning then, he saw a surprising event. His dog had learned to swim and was swimming for the shore. Ah, help me. He screamed to his dog. However, it just shook itself dry and ignored Inari's pleas. Water filled his mouth and he sank beneath the surface. Inari woke up a few hours later to find himself on dry land. He sat up, disoriented. What had been going on? He looked around and saw a man next to him, staring at him. Now, he started remembering what had happened. He had been drowning. "Who are you? Did you save me?" The man nodded, smiling. He turned away and asked, "Was your dog important to you?" Inari lowered his head in shame. I wanted to save it. But I was afraid that you'd drown as well." Inari looked up into the man's face. "When you have something precious to you, you should protect it with both arms, regardless of whether it costs you your life or not." And flashback, Inari turned back, staring at his mother. He gritted his teeth and charged at the gangsters. He was going to protect his mother whether it costs him his life or not. He wasn't going to abandon her like he did his dog. One of the gangsters grabbed him around the neck and laughed, calling to his mate, "What should we do with this one? Feisty, isn't he? Well, I don't think we need more than one hostage. Just get rid of him." Tsunami yelled out, "No." When the gangster hesitated, she said in a calmer voice, "Please, don't. I'll do anything you want, just don't hurt him." Inari stared at his mom. "Mom," the second gangster growled. The woman was tied up and now she was issuing orders. How outrageous was that? He took a knife and knocked Tsunami unconscious with the hilt. "Kill him and let's go." Inari yelled, "Mom." He kicked and scratched the gangster holding him until he let go, hissing in pain. "Mom." He ran over to his mom's side. "I have enough of this." The other gangster lunged towards Inari with his knife. Inari squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the end to come, but it never did. "Good job. My brothers would have been proud." Inari opened his eyes wide in surprise. He looked up into the face of a young, familiar man. I thought you were at the bridge." Itachi grinned cheerfully. "I was, but I was thirsty. See?" He held up a tray of drinks. "I came back here just to make sure everything was alright and it was a good thing I did." "Where's Sakura and Zabuza-san?" he asked, suddenly serious. Inari stared at the two dead gangsters on the ground. Itachi killed them with one hand, he was holding the drinks in the other. "I don't know. They were still fighting when we escaped." Realization hit him. "Oh no, Itachi-san, we've got to go help them." "No need. We're finished." Sakura and Zabuza came out behind the bushes. Zabuza grinned beneath his mask. "You left the brats to defend themselves, Itachi." Sakura gasped. "Itachi-sensei." Itachi chuckled. "Don't worry, they can defend themselves. It would be a good idea to go though. If this was the battle here, the battle going on at the bridge should be a more serious matter." He turned to Inari. "You and your mom stay here. It wouldn't be a good thing for you two to get involved. Let's go." He led Sakura and Zabuza towards the bridge, leaving Inari to stare at his receding back determinedly. Despite Itachi telling him to stay there, he took up his crossbow and went off to gather the villagers for a rebellion and a battle of their lifetimes. Shidarsu laughed. "Ready or not, you'll still die." Raninu suddenly lunged towards Naruto and thrust his sword at godlike speed towards his heart. To his surprise, Naruto countered it easily. Naruto smirked. "I'll say this once and only once. You shouldn't underestimate us." He pushed Raninu back and thrust his sword at him, missing by mere millimeters. Raninu flipped back to Shidarsu and muttered. "He's good, I'll give him that." Shidarsu narrowed his eyes. "He's a kid." "Shidarsu-san, you may be the cleverest of us all, but you underestimate people too much. Kids can be strong, despite the fact that they are kids." Raninu kept his gaze on Naruto the whole time. This one just proved it a fact. "I got a feeling these leaf nins aren't as weak as they appear." Shidarsu snarled, "I want to get this over quick. Just kill, we don't need any prisoners or hostages." He charged at Sasuke, his fist glowing with chakra. Sasuke smirked and countered it with his left foot, leaving his hands free to attack. He pushed Shidarsu away and lunged swiftly at him, fist poised. However, Shidarsu dodged and flipped backwards. "You're right, Raninu. They're better than we thought, but they're still kids." Kurashinaru snorted. "They're nothing." He lunged at Sasuke. Sasuke, who expected him to be just like Shidarsu, was taken by surprise. Kurashinaru, unlike the other two, who were just testing them, was aiming to kill. Sasuke leaned to the side, surviving a fatal blow with only a deep cut to his left cheek. Kurashinaru smirked and straightened up, kicking Sasuke in the gut before he could react. "See, Shidarsu. You're just getting soft." Sasuke grunted, bending over. "Sasuke." Naruto ran at Kurashinaru with his katana ready. However, Raninu came into the picture, preventing him from coming to Sasuke's rescue and forcing him to battle him instead. Ack. Kurashinaru swiped his leg at Sasuke, but Sasuke managed to jump out of the way in time. Kurashinaru took out an axe and swung it at Sasuke's head, laughing. "Take this, kiddo." Sasuke ducked, he was forced into defensive mode. He licked his lips, trying to find a weak spot. However, weak spots appear suddenly and disappear just as quickly because of the speed Kurashinaru was going. "Yo, Sasuke, jump." Naruto yelled. Sasuke widened his eyes in confusion, but he jumped anyways. Itachi appeared under him, slashing at Kurashinaru with a kunai. Niacin came just in time. Kurashinaru gaped in surprise. One look at the situation and one knows that Itachi had given him no time to think or dodge. It was a perfect surprise attack if only Kuroshineru didn't call at the last minute. Haku. Itachi slashed at Kuroshineru. He gasped. Blood splattered on his face from his attack, but the blood wasn't from the ninja he had intended the attack. Naruto and Sasuke gaped. What the between their brother and the ninja was the waitress they had met just a day ago. She had taken Itachi's attack, which left a deep wound slightly below her collar, protecting Kuroshineru from harm. Itachi staggered backwards, unbelieving of what he had done. He had injured someone who wasn't even supposed to be in the fight. Why? Haku looked up at him, her eyes filled with hopelessness and distress. Blood came all over her clothes, but she didn't do anything to prevent the flow. Sakura and Zabuza came into the scene, looking confused of what was going on. Sakura gasped at Haku's blood, looking from Itachi's bloody kunai to Haku's stained clothes. Shidarsu chuckled at their confusion. "Ah, you don't think I'm gonna come and fight against the legendary Itachi Uchiha without some protection, were you?" He walked over to Haku. "Yesterday, you came into my restaurant, but we didn't cause you any trouble because we were in public." Naruto growled, "So you're her master?" "Of course." Shidarsu grabbed Haku's arm and twisted it behind her back, making her gasp in pain. "Now that she enters the picture, I'm sure the fight will be more interesting." Seeing their still confused faces, he explained, "She doesn't have free will like you do. See that collar? It forces her to obey my every command, and I command her to protect us from your attacks with her body." Kuroshineru laughed. "Entertaining, yes." Sakura, horrified, whispered, "That's so cruel." Sasuke hissed, "They didn't even provide her with weapons." Naruto, his anger blinding his reason, charged at Shidarsu. "You're sick." Shidarsu, obviously intending to hurt Haku and at the same time giving Naruto a sense of helplessness, dislocated Haku's shoulder. Haku looked as if she was about to cry out, but no sound could be heard. If she did have her voice, she would have screamed. Naruto stopped, seeing Haku's pained expression. He stepped back, glaring at Shidarsu. Shidarsu grinned. "As you can see, I can do anything to her and she can't do anything about it. However, you can control what I do to her somewhat. You give up your mission and I won't hurt her anymore. Allow us to kill you without struggling. You know you have a chance to help her." Part V. Clever winner. Naruto was having a conversation with Abiguous, an urgent conversation while appearing to think over Shidarsu's offer. "What do we do now? Can anyone tell me anything about that collar?" Haku put a hand to his chin, his eyes narrowed in serious thought. "From what I heard, this kind of collars can't be broken or taken off because once they're put on someone, they become part of that person. You try to pull that collar off and you'll find yourself tearing her neck muscles off. The only way you're gonna save her, at least from their cruelty, is if you could get them to transfer their ownership to you. That chance. Where do people come up with this idea anyways? It's sick. I know, kid, but that's how it is. Also, her life is connected to what's his name, Shidarsu's. He dies, and she dies. She dies, he won't. The collar forces her to obey her master's every command as well, even at the cost of her life. Her owner controls her life." Kaku sighed. "Sorry, kid. That's all I know. No one has ever been able to find a way to get the collar off once it's on." Naruto nodded. He was going to have a bit of trouble with this, even if he has hold of all the Bijuu's cleverness, he has to stall for a while to have some time to think. He looked up at Shidarsu, accidentally meeting Haku's eyes instead. The hopelessness, the lifelessness and the depression sent a cold chill down his back and he involuntarily stepped back. What the heck was that? The Bijuus all shivered. Even they were slightly shaken. Soku hissed, "They're no normal eyes, kid. They're the eyes of death." Kyuubi cried, horrified. "What have they done to her?" Naruto understood the Bijuu's panic and horror. All his life, he had never seen someone so lifeless and hopeless, giving up on life completely. Kyuubi wasn't exaggerating when she said Haku's eyes were the eyes of death. Naruto shook himself, straightening out his mind. He yelled to Shidarsu, "Forget the deal. If you're not gonna hurt her now, you're gonna hurt her later. No way are we gonna give up all our lives just for her." Smart kid. Then again, he was only saying what he should be saying, not what his heart says. Shidarsu shrugged. "Your loss. Either way, we win. I'll just tell you outright. I know you can't bring yourself to kill someone who has no part in this battle." Naruto growled. Shidarsu was taunting them, giving them the sense of helplessness. He's smart, Naruto'll give him that. He was weakening them that way, just by taunting them. Afterwards, it will be easier to defeat all of them altogether. Needless to say, it was working. Itachi whispered to Naruto. "What if we all attack at the same time? She can't possibly protect all of them at once. Itachi, she'll probably get split in half in an attempt to be at more than one place at once." Naruto kept his gaze on Haku as he spoke. Itachi gulped inaudibly. This mission was turning out more twisting and confusing to the mind than he thought. They were practically split in half, their minds and their hearts turning against each other in their bodies. Shidarsu smirked. They were acting just as he planned. Ninjas were all like that when it comes to a mission that requires more than just focus on the mission itself. They all became confused of what to do. These ninjas will be no different, no harder to defeat than the ninjas before them. He made a hand sign and the all-out battle begun. Rananu and Naruto immediately engaged in a Kenjutsu match, while Sasuke and Sakura battled Kurashinaru. Itachi and Zabuza attacked Shidarsu. They were all careful to stay in defensive mode to avoid getting Haku into the picture and to stall for more time to think up of a plan that avoids putting Haku's life in jeopardy. This is so stupid. 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 Why do they have to use a slave in this battle? Why do they have to torture her and make her life miserable? Why do we have to be part of this? Now either way, her life is still going downhill, pulling us with it. Naruto countered another one of Rananu's uppercuts and jumped to the side to avoid a chakra blade bursting from his sword. Meanwhile, Sasuke and Sakura were battling Kurashinaru a distance away. As Sakura doesn't have enough brute strength, hey, Tsunade hasn't taught her yet to counter his axe, she had to dodge and stay a farther distance away from him. Sasuke, his mind racing to think up of a loophole to defeat Kurashinaru without having to exactly attack, was standing his ground. He was thinking of just tiring him out, however, his own energy was being used up faster than his opponent's. Losing focus of the battle at hand because of trying to come up with a plan, he dropped his guard, giving Kurashinaru a chance to deliver a fatal wound. Sasuke widened his eyes in surprise, shaken out of his reverie. He saw the axe coming at slow speed. Time seemed to slow down. Suddenly, a flash of pink came in front of him. Sasuke gasped. Sakura was staring unseeingly at her body, a huge slash running from her left shoulder to her right hip. Sakura. Sakura staggered back, a trickle of blood streaming down from her lips. Sasuke-kun. Kurashinaru smirked. Why don't the lovers go to the netherworld together? He grabbed Sakura by her arm and whipped her into Sasuke, who caught her. Sasuke and Sakura, who was now lifeless, were thrown off the edge of the bridge into the ocean below. Sasuke managed to stay afloat, gasping for breath. Sakura, he muttered, searching for her body in the water. There she was, sinking beneath the surface, pale and still lifeless. Sasuke took a deep breath and swam forward to save her. He pulled her to the surface, gasping, Sakura he struggled, pulling her body towards the shore. Sasuke. Sakura. Naruto clenched his fist. That was it. He was done playing Shidarsu's game, the game he was sure they would lose if they were gonna continue the same way that they are. They were holding back in fear of hurting Haku, who would be hurt either way, now or later. Wait, Naruto smacked himself mentally. The plan was so simple. He had been so concerned about Haku's well-being now that he didn't consider the plan before. Kaku had suggested the idea at the very beginning. Nissan, sensei, get back. Forget Haku. She's gonna be hurt either way. Might as well take these guys with her. That's the only way. In reality though, Naruto was not planning to kill Haku at all. However, they were going to have to be good actors. Shidarsu widened his eyes. Do these ninjas really have the guts to kill an innocent person in the process to kill their enemies? Itachi caught the sign Naruto sent at him. Naruto had shaken his hand back and forth quickly, signaling to his brother to go along with the plan. Itachi glanced at Zabuza, knowing that he had caught the sign as well. Well, Zabuza-san, we should get back. Zabuza needed no prompting. He knew whenever Naruto says something like that, he was gonna do something serious. These ninjas are gonna die, no doubt. Naruto smirked. These guys won't outlive this mission. He closed his eyes and concentrated. They were in waves, a land with unlimited amount of water. Isonade's powers will come in handy. Shidarsu jumped back, his eyes widened in shock and horror. What the foo? Itachi retreated farther back. Looks like we're about to meet another bijuu outside of Kyuubi-chan. Naruto continued concentrating. One tail, a green tail made of Isonade's chakra, flowed behind Naruto. Green chakra formed a demon cape around Naruto in the shape of a turtle. Two tails, another tail appeared. Three tails. Naruto opened his eyes, which were no longer a light shade of blue, but a dark shade of green. You're gonna die, Naruto announced, his voice slightly altered. Sasuke pulled Sakura's body onto the shore, panting from the effort. He laid her on the sand and whispered, Sakura. Sakura groaned nearly inaudibly. Sasuke sighed with relief. He bit his lower lip, staring at Sakura's still bleeding wound. If he doesn't stop the flow, she's gonna die from blood loss. He was no doctor, but he had seen Naruto channel chakra into his grandfather's wound before to quicken the healing. Sasuke wasn't sure if he could do it though. Naruto had said if he channeled the chakra into the person the wrong way, he could end up killing the person instead. Then again, she'll die if I don't do it, so might as well take the chances. Sasuke placed his hand over Sakura's wound at the shoulder and channeled his chakra through, careful to channel a bit at a time. It seems to be working. Suddenly, Anoise turned his focus. He looked backwards, pulling his hand away, and gasped. The water in the ocean was turning greenish, as if infused with chakra. The ocean was also unstable, dangerous currents swirling against each other. What is going on? Shidarsu gulped and stepped back, away from Naruto. Rananu was right. They really had been underestimating the kids. That was an understatement too. Naruto smirked. Ready yourself. The bully is about to be the bullied. He lifted his arms and the water in the ocean rose into the air. He charged at Shidarsu at superhuman speed with the water rushing behind him. As he expected, Haku appeared in front of her master to take the damage. Naruto rammed right into her stomach, knocking all the wind out of her. The water swirled around her, nearly drowning her. After the water subsided, Haku was unconscious on the bridge floor. Rananu whispered to Shidarsu, "Well, you better get that brain of yours working to think up of a plan. This guy ain't afraid to kill her." Shidarsu's brain was racing. So they weren't up against a normal kid, they were up against a Jinchuriki who knows how to completely master the bijuu's powers. Naruto turned to him with a manic expression on his face. He rushed at Shidarsu, his tails flowing behind him. Again, Haku, even though she was unconscious, intervened. Shidarsu was desperate. "Stop." Naruto stopped, his fist was 2 inches from Haku's face. "What? Any last words?" Shidarsu knew very well that Naruto still cared for his slave's well-being. The only reason that he could possibly have for killing her was to end her misery, since she was still owned and in the process could still be tortured by Shidarsu himself. So, if he was going to survive this battle, he was going to have to make sacrifices. "I'll make a deal with you." "What's the deal?" Naruto's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "The deal will be fair. We both gain something, and we both lose something. You said you wouldn't agree to our last deal because she could still be tortured by me later on, after our battle, and that you weren't gonna sacrifice all your lives just for her. Well then, I'll make this fair to you. I'll transfer my ownership of Haku to you, but you'll have to leave this country and never come back, abandoning your mission right now." Naruto was grinning inside. His plan worked. He had driven them to desperation. His tails disappeared and he appeared to be thinking for a minute. Itachi ran over to him and whispered into his ear. "Naruto, if you agree to this, waves will be the price of this deal. Tizuna's the only bridge builder who's still courageous enough to continue this work. If we leave, he won't have enough time to find another team to protect him before these guys kill him, stifling the only chance of saving this country. Nissan, she lived a terrible life. I'm not gonna give up the only chance of saving her," Naruto replied resolutely. However, he looked up at Shidarsu. "I do want to know how you know that we would keep our end of the bargain." "Easy, your code of honor," Shidarsu shrugged. "Naruto, don't do this," Itachi pleaded. "I agree to the deal," Naruto announced to Shidarsu. "Good." Shidarsu smirked and took out some papers. "Here are her papers. You have to sign to our deal first though." He wrote down the terms of the deal they had just agreed to and set the paper in front of Naruto after signing his own name. He also gave Naruto Haku's slave contract after he signed the first contract. "The moment you sign Haku's contract, the caller will recognize you as her new master." Naruto nodded and signed both papers, starting with the paper that had the terms of their deal on it. Then he signed Haku's slave contract. The moment he finished writing, he could see Haku's collar glow, signaling that the caller indeed had recognized him as her new master. He wasn't really expecting it to be a trick though. Shidarsu had been desperate, he wouldn't want to trick Naruto. Behind him, Zabuza chuckled at Itachi's distress. Itachi looked up at him. "What's so funny? We just gave up a mission to save waves." Zabuza grinned under his mask. "Clever, isn't he? This was his plan all along." Knowing that the transfer of slaves require signed contracts, he drew a conclusion that Shidarsu would also make a contract to seal their deal. Shidarsu believed in signing contracts to seal deals. "Well, haven't you noticed? That brat switched hands." So Naruto had switched hands when he switched contracts, using his left hand to seal their deal, while using his right hand to seal Haku's contract. Shidarsu straightened up. "Well then, I guess we should finish our work, eh, Kuro, Rananu?" He turned to Tizuna, who had turned pale over the course of the signing. "Well?" He looked back at where Rananu and Kurashinaru were supposed to be alive. He gaped, horrified. Itachi and Zabuza had made short work of them. "You signed." Naruto smirked. "Let me just tell you something. When someone signs a contract with his or her left hand, he or she hasn't really agreed to it, so the contract would not have come into effect. Both parties didn't agree to it." In one swift movement, he killed Shidarsu with his katana. As Shidarsu breathed his last breath, Naruto said emotionlessly and coldly, "I told you that you wouldn't survive this battle, both the battles of wit and physics. Hard by. Ice Queen." Sasuke grunted as he pulled Sakura onto his shoulder and carried her towards the bridge. Sakura's breathing was now more even, and her face had some more color to it. Sasuke looked back at the water in the ocean. It was now back to its normal color and was swishing gently and peacefully. "I wonder what happened." He half dragged, half carried Sakura over to the bridge. He was expecting everyone to still be fighting, so what a surprise he found when everyone was waiting for him with Tazuna continuing to build the bridge, looking assured that he won't be attacked. What's going on? Naruto looked up, his eyes filled with pure joy. Sasuke. Sakura. He ran towards them, giving them a huge hug. Sakura smiled weakly. Nice to see you, too, Naruto. Sasuke just saved my life. Just as you did mine. Sasuke's voice was soft. Naruto grinned and stepped back. He wanted to see what happens. Sakura looked up at Sasuke in the eyes. For a moment, it seems as if something clicked between them. Suddenly, Sakura made the first move. She leaned closer to Sasuke. Their lips were about to touch when Sasuke asked, "Sakura, what are you doing?" Everyone groaned. Sakura flushed and shook her head. "Nothing. Just stretching my lips." Sasuke gave her a look before shrugging it off. Naruto was quite disappointed, he was expecting Sasuke to kiss her back. Oh well, he had known Sasuke had a soft spot for Sakura out of all the girls, but he never really expected him to fall in love so easily. So Sasuke and Sakura sitting in a tree. Kissing. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes Itachi in a baby carriage. He sang, just for the purpose of annoying Sasuke. Sasuke growled. "Shut up, Naruto." Naruto grinned. "You're not together, but I bet you're thinking about it." Sasuke huffed and helped Sakura into a sitting position. "So, what did we miss?" "A lot." Naruto started to recount everything that happened including his amazing clever plan. Sasuke rolled his eyes. "That wasn't really your plan though, isn't it? It was the bijuus." I actually thought of it. Kaku-san just gave me a hint and some information of course," Naruto said, winking. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Haku sitting up, finally conscious. Speaking of which, looks like Haku's awake. They all turned their attention to Haku, who was still pale from nearly drowning. After a moment, she seemed to realize that she had new masters, the caller lets her know, and she quickly stood up, bowing to them, obviously awaiting orders or something of the same nature. Naruto sighed. He had wanted to take her in so that she could be free, not so that she would be their slave instead. Listen, he reached out to lay a hand on her shoulder. However, Haku flinched and involuntarily stepped back. Naruto, confused, asked Itachi, "Why did she do that?" "Isn't it obvious, Ataudo?" "She thought you were gonna hit her," Itachi replied, his voice strained. Naruto widened his eyes. "Hit her?" He gritted his teeth. "What have they done to her?" He glanced at her shoulder and remembered her dislocated one. Of course he came over to her and said, "Listen, I'm not gonna hurt you, okay?" Haku stepped farther back, obviously not trusting him one bit. Naruto stopped advancing, whispering, "Please just trust me on this, okay? I promise I won't hurt you." Empty promises, Haku thought. However, she knew he could control her now, so she might as well comply without him using the collar on her. She walked slowly forward towards Naruto. Naruto could recognize the signs immediately that she was coming to him out of fear, not trust. He couldn't expect more though, how could he expect her to trust him, who was nearly a complete stranger? He will have to start from there though, not using the collar. He gently pulled down her top to her dislocated shoulder. He began healing it. Haku stared blankly at his glowing hand on her shoulder. Why was he healing her? It only takes up his energy unless he was doing this so that he could torture her later on. When he was done, she moved her shoulder stiffly. It was as good as new. So he kept his promise for now. He might only be doing this to get her trust and then later on, hurt her worse. Naruto grinned. "See, I told you I wouldn't hurt you. Maybe we can find a way to get that collar off of you too." Haku, horrified, staggered backwards. She signed so quickly, Naruto could hardly understand what she was trying to say. "Please, don't hurt me. I'm begging you." It took Naruto a while to understand what she was talking about. "No, no, no, no. We're gonna find a way to set you free. We're not just gonna rip the collar off." Haku seemed to relax after this though she still doesn't trust him. Why does he want to set her free anyways? Maybe he wants her to be in debt to him or something. Then they all heard yelling and screaming. At first, it was small and quiet. As it came closer to the bridge, the noise became louder. When it came into view, they can see a huge mob made up of the villagers, and in front of the crowd was a short man Gato. Inari came to the front and yelled to the ninjas and his grandfather, "Guess what? We captured Gato." The gangsters guarding him gave up after they saw how many people are with me. Naruto gaped, surprised but proud at the same time. "Good for you. So what do you want us to do with him?" Zabuza clenched and unclenched his fists, flexing them. "I say we cut him into thirds and decapitate him." Everyone stared at him. Naruto laughed nervously. I got a better idea." Sasuke sighed contentedly. "I have to say, Naruto, your creativity surprises even me sometimes." Itachi put an arm around Naruto's shoulders and nodded in agreement. "So true. Who would have thought to tie him up and set him on a raft, stranded in the middle of the ocean inside a sushi costume and covered in real soy sauce. Also, the villagers are throwing rotten fruit at him. This is the best entertainment in this village for years. Oh, come on. It wasn't that funny. Itachi shrugged. No, but that is. He pointed to Zabuza a distance off. Even Naruto couldn't hold in his laughter. Zabuza was surrounded by villagers who were treating him like a hero. He was obviously trying to escape. How did you guys manage to escape? Sasuke shrugged. It had all begun with bananas. Naruto sighed, pulling Haku's shirt farther down. It had taken him forever to get her to trust him enough for him to heal her wounds. He could feel her trembling as he slipped her whole top off. Can you calm down, please? He asked, careful not to make it a command. The last thing he wanted to do was activate the collar and make her more conscious of her status. Haku jumped as Naruto touched her back. Exasperated, Naruto pulled her down. I'm just trying to heal you, okay? I can't if you keep jumping every time I touch you. Haku felt her heart melt again. Oh, how was he able to do that? How could he melt her heart so and get her to want to trust him so much? He was pulling her into a trap and she couldn't resist it much longer. Trust would only lead to pain later on. Naruto grimaced at the scars still present from the whippings she endured from her previous masters. He couldn't get how people can be so cruel. The silence was making him uneasy, so he asked, how old are you anyways? 15. So she was 2 or 3 years older than him. Surprisingly, he had thought she was only 13. Now, to solve a few pieces of the puzzle, he asked, though he knew it was impolite to ask such things, how were you mute? I know I'm acting nosy, but I'm just trying to know more about you. Were you born mute or do you just don't talk and eventually you forgot how to talk at all? Haku hesitated. Then she signed, it's because of the collar. Long time ago, I could talk, but then, when I was captured by slave drivers, it all changed. The artists who made these kinds of collars designed them so that they could control the slaves. The collars were designed to make them in one or more ways inferior to their masters, so each and every one of them contained a curse, handicapping the wearer muteness, blindness, etc. I eventually got used to my handicap, but it's still there. The only way for me to be able to talk again is if this collar is removed from me. And again, I haven't spoken for so long, I probably forgot how to speak anyways. Naruto was silent the rest of the healing. At night, hey, guys, have any of you seen Haku? Naruto searched worriedly around the house. It's 11 already, and I can't find her anywhere. Sakura looked up from her book. Maybe you should check outside. Naruto nodded, sighing exasperatedly. He went outside, calling, Haku. Where could she have gone? He sniffed the air, trying to pick up her scent, and, finding it, followed it to a small lake behind the house. Haku. Come on, I know you're there, you don't have to hide from me. There was a rustling noise, and Haku came out from behind a rock. Naruto gave her a look. It's 11 already, come inside. You're gonna catch a cold if you stay out here. He took her hand and led her back into the house. What were you doing out there anyways? Looking at the stars. Does it bother you, master? It does if you stay out there all night, Naruto replied. He led her to their room, which was dark. Sakura finished with her nighttime reading and all. Anyways, there are only 2 beds, so you'll have to share with one of us. I can always sleep on the floor, she signed. One thing she was sure of, the floors of this house would be much more comfortable than the floors at her old master's house, at least they don't have broken pieces of marble here and there to stab at her back. Naruto pretended not to see what she had signed. Oh well, look at that. Sasuke's already sleeping with Sakura. What a surprise. She sneaks in next to him whenever he falls asleep. Well, Haku, he lay down in the other bed and patted the spot next to him. Haku sat down on the bed and took a moment to feel the soft covers. She hadn't slept on a bed for years. Finally she lay down and curled up, staying as far away from Naruto as possible. Naruto just smiled and pulled the covers over both of them. Good night. Haku curled up tighter. She has to be careful around Naruto, he's getting closer to her heart. Hard by. Breaking the ice. Haku opened her eyes. The sun was streaming in through the window. How long have I overslept? She thought, noting the fact that the room was empty of people except for her. She got up and walked to the kitchen. Sasuke, Itachi, and Sakura were all at the table, finishing up with breakfast. Itachi smiled at Haku as she entered the room. If you're looking for Naruto, he's out for his morning jog. It's only 5 in the morning, so you can go back to sleep if you want. Haku shook her head and went outside, hoping not to encounter Naruto as she enjoys the peaceful morning. She decided to go back to her hiding place yesterday night. Birds were chirping and she smiled. Morning was her favorite time of day. She rounded the corner, then she backtracked. What's he doing here? Naruto was in the backyard, tapping his toes as if readying himself. He looked around, making sure no one was spying on him. Of course, outside of Haku, no one was about that early in the morning. Naruto sighed, muttering, I shouldn't be doing this. Doing what? Naruto straightened himself, narrowing his eyes determinedly and looking ahead. Suddenly he shot forward, emitting dirt and dust behind him. Haku gaped, amazed. Naruto smirked at nothing in particular just from running at superhuman speed. He reached the other side of the island in record time and ran straight into the ocean, running so fast he wasn't even sinking. He rounded on the ocean and shot back again. His trail was lit with dirt and dust. He finished 10 laps around the island in 5 minutes. As he ended his rounds, he turned sideways and stopped altogether, sliding to a stop right in the backyard. The dust and dirt settled gradually. Naruto panted slightly, grinning. "That feels so good," he whispered. Haku shook herself out of her amazement and stepped backward slowly, feeling that this wasn't the time to announce her presence. However, her foot stepped on a stick and a small snap sounded through the air. Naruto snapped his head up, aware that he wasn't the only one there. After he sniffed the air for a few seconds, he called out, "Haku, I told you that you don't have to hide from me." Haku stepped out from behind the house. "How much did you see?" Naruto asked, walking towards her. Haku stepped backwards, away from Naruto, afraid that she might have done something wrong and that she might be in for some punishment. "I saw you running." Instantly, instinctively, Naruto's brain began racing. His eyes glinted slyly and he, instead of denying anything or ordering Haku to forget the event or anything of the same manner, said, "Running, He paused, looking deep into Haku's eyes. "Can you do me a favor, Haku, by not talking about this to anyone? The only ones who know are my family, the Hokage and my teachers, they're the only ones who know my full potential. You're the first outside my circle to know this. So, can you keep it a secret? Why won't you just order me to do it? Why don't you want others to know your full potential?" Haku had so many questions. The way her master's mind works confuses her completely. "I don't want them to treat me different from who I really am, the real me is here, not the guy you just saw running at lightning speeds a few minutes ago. I won't order you because I don't want to activate your collar and treat you as a slave." Naruto placed his hand on her shoulder. "Also I trust you and I hope someday you'll trust me too." Haku turned away, signing, "It's not easy for me to trust." Naruto whispered, "I know. Either way, though, I trust you." Haku clenched her fists. There he goes again. He was melting the ice surrounding her heart. Why does he want to hurt her so? "Haku?" Naruto peered concernedly at her. Haku, confused and disoriented, felt anger rising up in her against Naruto. She hadn't felt anger in such a long time that she had forgotten how hard it was to control its smack. She stared in horror at what she just did. Her hand was still poised from slapping Naruto. Haku trembled slightly before she finally broke down, tears running down her face as she turned around and ran. Naruto's face turned to one of shock. He had never expected that. Haku had never seemed like a person who would get angry. "I guess everyone gets angry sometime or later, but I wonder why she did that." Itachi sighed behind him. "I guess that didn't go so well, did it?" Naruto shook his head sadly and asked, "Why did she do that, Itachi-ni-san? What did I do wrong?" "Naruto, you must understand that Haku is a broken slave. It's gonna take a lot of patience to fix a broken slave. You have to show her that you're trustworthy many times, she's not just gonna trust you after a day or two. Sometimes, it might take years to gain her trust completely. You've been a little too hasty, now she's confused, not understanding your actions or your intentions. Go slowly and be patient." Naruto nodded. He can't expect this to be easy, can he? Haku buried her face in her hands, expecting any moment for Naruto to order her back and punish her. So this was what he planned. She had gone way past the line when she had slapped her own master. None of her previous masters would ever let her get away with that, she was quite sure Naruto wouldn't either. Every noise made her jump, fearing that Naruto might be coming to torment her. Her heart was racing and she felt delirious like a trapped animal. "Haku, can you come out? I know you're there," Naruto's voice called out. "Oh no." Haku looked frantically around, searching for where the voice was coming from. "I'm right here." She spun around. Naruto was right behind her, smiling. She stepped backwards though she knew quite well that she couldn't escape what he intended for her. Tears flowed down her cheeks, but she ignored them. Might as well get this over with, she thought, defeated. She knelt down and got on her hands and knees. She'd rather not get hurt more than she is going to be already. She learned from experience that if she tries to escape her punishments, she'd get hurt worse, much worse. She waited for the blows, but they never came. Instead, gentle hands pulled her up. What was going on? "Come on, I promised I won't hurt you, and I always keep my promises." Naruto hugged her gently, careful not to make any sudden movements. "I know you have the right to never trust again after all you've been through, but if you don't trust, how will you ever know what happens if you did?" Haku widened her eyes. Such gentle arms. She looked up into his eyes, searching for any deception. However, she found none. His eyes were honest, truthful, and kind. Could she really learn to trust him? Could she ever learn to trust again? Haku gingerly touched Naruto's cheek, the one which she had slapped, expecting any second that he would hit and beat her. Maybe I could try after all. He did stick to his promise, at least to this far in time. Naruto's smile brightened. She trusted him at least a bit. It was a start. So will you give me a chance? Please. Haku hesitated, uncertain. She wasn't ready to give him a straight answer yet. How will she answer him? Being mute had dulled her skills in expressing her emotions and describing her feelings. Naruto understood and said softly, slightly sad, I'll wait for your answer. You don't have to answer today. You can answer anytime you want to. Why is he being so nice to me? Haku felt crushed. Naruto's voice had sounded so sad. Come on. You haven't had breakfast yet, have you? Naruto pulled her gently back to the house. When they entered, they found Itachi at the table, writing a report of the mission for the Hokage. He looked up at them and smiled. The moment their eyes met, Haku knew that he knew about what happened in the backyard. She flushed, but Itachi just went back to writing. Maybe I could learn to trust them. Zabuza burst into the room, followed by Sasuke and Sakura, who were chasing him and yelling, come on, you promised you wouldn't be Mr. Grumpy Pants. Zabuza yelled back, I promised that, I didn't promise that I'd play hangman and dollies with you too. Oh, for crying out loud. Haku stared. She had no idea what was going on. Aren't shinobi supposed to be composed and calm and command respect? But here, two teenagers were annoying an older shinobi, and no one was even gonna stop them. In fact, Itachi and Naruto were laughing along with Sasuke and Sakura, who finally managed to jump Zabuza. These ninjas are strange. At night, Haku turned around to face Naruto instead of facing the other way. She knew she should give him a chance, he had trusted her in so many ways. However, caution was holding her back. He was still her master, and she was still his slave. Naruto stared at her in the darkness. You know, you're gonna fall off the edge if you keep sleeping that far out. Haku knew it was the truth. She was on her side and was so close to the edge, it was nearly certain that she'd fall off in the middle of the night. But the bed was small for two people, and if she comes closer to the inside, she'd be way too close to Naruto for comfort. Naruto sighed and got up. You can have the bed then, he whispered as to not wake up Sasuke and Sakura. Haku blinked, curious. Where was Naruto going? Naruto shook his head, seeing Haku's expression. Don't worry, just have a good sleep. He pulled the blanket over Haku and left the room. Haku again felt something stir up inside her. Guilt. Sadness. She doesn't know. Eventually though, she fell into an uneasy sleep. Haku woke up and tiptoed out of their room. Surprisingly, today, Sasuke and Sakura were still asleep. She came out into the living room on her way to the kitchen, and she widened her eyes at the sight that greeted her in the living room. On the sofa was Naruto, sound asleep. What's he doing here? It didn't take her long to connect the meaning of yesterday night and that day. Naruto was afraid that she would fall off, so, knowing that she can't bring herself to come closer inside with him still on it, he got off and went to sleep outside on the sofa instead. Haku felt another guilt pang coming in, but she shook it off and went over to Naruto, shaking him awake. Naruto groaned and turned over, muttering, Sasuke, leave me alone. Haku persisted, shaking him slightly harder. She was less fearful of him now, nearly convinced completely that he wasn't gonna hurt her. She has to know the truth though, she doesn't want to continue her life hating and distancing herself from Naruto if it wasn't necessary. Naruto finally opened his eyes sleepily and mumbled, what is it, Haku? Haku signed, can I talk to you, master? Naruto blinked groggily. His brain was slow and it took him a while to understand her signs. Sure he was slightly nervous, what's so important that she has to talk to him immediately about? He sat up and rubbed his eyes. Okay, what do you need to talk to me about? Can I trust you? Okay, then Naruto hesitated. It was an awkward question, and it was more awkward still to answer it. It depends on you really, he paused. Do you think I'm trustworthy? I don't know. That's why I'm looking to you for an answer. Sorry, Haku, but I can't just tell you to trust me. What's the point of that? You have to decide for yourself if we are trustworthy. I can only tell you what you need to hear, but you have to decide if my words are to be trusted or not. If I order you to trust me, am I being trustworthy? Naruto asked, smiling. Haku turned away. Why couldn't he just give her a straight answer? I don't know. When she turned to meet his eyes however, she suddenly felt a surge of determination, of something, she couldn't quite describe or recognize it. It did give her enough courage to say to Naruto this though, maybe I could learn to trust you one day. Naruto widened his eyes, surprised. Did Haku just say what he thought she said? Then he grinned. Then I'll make sure you won't be disappointed. Suddenly Sasuke came stomping into the room, disrupting their intimate conversation. Arg. Sakura slept next to me, again. He noticed Naruto on the couch and then, forgetting about Sakura for a moment, smirked, asking, you slept on the couch last night, Nisan. You know, the floor is softer than that couch. He laughed and said under his breath, dope. Naruto rolled his eyes. Shut up, Sasuke. Why do you always have to enter at the wrong moment? A week later at night, before their return to Konoha, Naruto was lying on his stomach, reading a scroll filled with proverbs and sayings. He was just reading because there wasn't anything else to do. He felt Haku's eyes on him and looked up. Haku was sitting cross-legged on the bed, staring at the scroll and him curiously. Naruto widened his eyes. "Can you read?" Haku shook her head sadly. "I was a slave for most of my life." Naruto grinned. "Well, then your lessons start now." He pulled her next to him and began teaching her the words. Will rules over destiny and fate. A king is a servant to those under his rule. Nothing can be divided against itself and still survive. Wait. Naruto stared at the saying. Nothing can be divided against itself and still survive, he muttered. An idea popped up inside his mind. He wasn't sure if it will work, but he was willing to try. "Haku, I'm gonna try something on your collar, okay?" Haku, suddenly fearful, gulped but nodded. "The collar's purpose is to make you follow my every command and please me outside of muting you and making you a slave, right?" Naruto asked. Haku nodded, not understanding what he was getting at. However, she decided right there and then that she was going to trust him on this and then see if he was going to break her trust. He was right when he said that if she doesn't trust, she won't be able to know what happens if she does. Well then, she was going to give him just this chance. Well then he looked at the collar around her neck and said out loud, determinedly, "I want you to be able to talk." Suddenly there was a loud snap coming from the collar and a crack ran down its front. Naruto, encouraged, said, "I want you to be free." Another loud snap sounded and another crack ran down its back piece. "I want you to have free will to defy me." With a loud snap, the collar came off Haku's neck and, with a loud bang, it dropped to the floor. The door burst open and Itachi, Sasuke and Sakura came in. "What's going on? Did you break something?" "We heard noises." Itachi stopped, staring at the broken collar on the floor. "How did you?" Naruto grinned. "Nothing can be divided against itself and still survive. The collar can't survive if its purposes oppose each other. I guess that makes me the first person to ever find a way to take the collar off, huh?" He turned to Haku. "I told you that I'd find a way to get rid of it." He picked up the broken pieces of the collar and threw them away into a garbage can inside their room. Haku felt her neck, marveling at her freedom. She looked up at Naruto, her eyes showing her gratefulness and her amazement at his discovery. Everyone was focused on her as if waiting for something. "Well, can you talk?" All of them were anticipated, wondering what Haku's voice would sound like. Haku took a deep breath. For a moment, it was as if she really had forgotten how to speak. But then she emitted a small, soft whisper, "Thank you." Her voice sounded like a miracle on her ears. She had never heard her own voice for such a long time. There was a loud cheer and Naruto jumped up and down, yelling, "Naruto Uzumaki did it again." Haku cocked her head, confused. Why were they so happy? Are they really that happy over someone like her? Sasuke smirked. Soft voice. Naruto finally stopped jumping and asked Haku, "Hey, why aren't you happy? You're free now, aren't you?" Haku widened her eyes, surprised. Someone was actually caring about her happiness. Do they actually care about her? At that moment, the ice surrounding her heart was broken. Naruto hadn't broken her trust, they really were trustworthy and they do care about her. "So you actually, really care about me?" she asked, softly and so quietly that it was only because of their tuned ninja hearing that they could even make out her words. "Of course we care about you. It's kinda stupid of us if we went through all that trouble to rescue and save you and then just forget that you're there." Sakura cried out. "I'd agree with Sakura," Itachi replied, smiling. "Yep. So true." Naruto nodded in agreement enthusiastically. "Have to agree with the fangirl," Sasuke said. Haku stared, still wide-eyed. "Haku?" they all asked at the same time. Haku shook her head, tears falling down her face as she finally understood their intentions. "Thank you," she said again. Then she lunged herself at Naruto, hugging him and sobbing onto his jacket. "Domo arigato, domo arigato." Naruto sighed contentedly, reminded of Sasuke 7 years ago. What if Naruto has multiple bijuu bloodlines? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.